If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
On present platform, do your soft shoe shuffle dance. Brush away the cigarette ash that's falling down your pants. And then you sadly wonder, does the nurse treat your old man the way she should? She made you tea, asked for your autograph.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Editor-in-Chief of Culture Shock, Chris Stachiw.
And I'm John Lein. And there's something in my suit! Oh god! There's something moving in my suit!
But no, there wasn't, John.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell later in the movie. No, there wasn't. You're lying. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man,
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah, right. So we are in the third week of Monster Movie Month. Second. Yeah. We're playing a little bit of catch up. And this week we're going to be talking about 3 films as opposed to 2. We're going to be talking about Apollo 18, Pitch Black, and Chupacabra versus the Alamo. We actually have interviews with Lloyd Owen from Apollo 18. He played Commander Nate Walker. From Pitch Black, we have an interview with Rhiana Griffith, who played Jack/Jackie. And from Chupacabra versus the Alamo, we have an interview with Vanesa Tomasino, who played Agent Danny, and Erik Estrada, the Erik Estrada, who plays Carlos Seguin, or as they keep pronouncing it in the film, Seguin? Seguin?
I pronounced it Seguin.
It's Seguin, but they were mispronouncing it in the film over and over again.
Doesn't that mean blood?
Sanguine means blood.
Oh.
Seguin is like a very well-known Hispanic last name. It was just really weird that they were mispronouncing it, considering how Erik Estrada is Hispanic. I figured he would have been like, you're saying it wrong at one point.
Maybe that was a joke, because Texans mispronounce Spanish stuff all the time.
Oh, maybe. That's fucking meta, dude. So let's talk about Apollo 18. 2011, it was a found footage film that talks about a mission to the moon that the public never found out about.
It's not really found footage. I mean, technically it's shot in the genre, but it's technically in the film, it's like recorded stuff by the government that just got released and unclassified.
Yeah, but I mean, there are found footage aspects, like when they're trouncing around on the surface of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And it features Warren Christie, Lloyd Owen, and Ryan Robbins. Fairly unknowns to the mass majority of people. Lloyd Owen actually played Henry Jones Sr. in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. That's where I'd seen him from. I mean, that's years ago, obviously. Film was directed by Gonzalo Lopez Gallego and produced by Timur Bekmambetov, who had done Night Watch and Day Watch.
Oh, those are some crazy movies.
Yeah. And this movie is just about a canceled Apollo 18 mission, and this footage was found and leaked to the public unceremoniously. So what do you think of it, John?
I like Apollo 18. I mean, it's, we've talked about multiple times how we're not really fans of found footage, but I think
me specifically.
Right.
I mean, my Cloverfield review should, reflect that in spades.
Mm-hmm. But Apollo 18 does it in, it does it in a cool way. It's space, so it sort of makes sense, and they're cameras from, what year is the movie set in, 1974 or something like that?
Yeah.
And so it's shot with, they shoot it with lenses from that decade and era to give it more of a realistic feel, and so it actually feels like documented footage that just got yanked out of some top secret DOD vault somewhere.
Right. I mean, this is essentially X-Files level type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like the film as well, and you did say, hey, we're not the biggest fans of found footage, and again, I'm really not a fan of found footage because I feel like it's one of those movie trends that has yet to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I get why it exists. It's a cheap way to make movies. I mean, you and I could go make a found footage film for pennies on the dollar if it was just you and I and somebody else. I mean, it's cheap. It's essentially just you have a camera and you're filming stuff. And that's great. I mean, that really is a great way to kind of bolster young filmmakers to make films. However, a lot of the found footage films that are released to mass market are awful. I mean, absolutely awful.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think specifically. I mean, God, Cloverfield, again, watched it last week. Still not a huge fan of it. I mean, then you have films like Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity 1 was great. Everything afterward, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
VHS kind of found footage. I think that was kind of where found footage peaked. And then you have all, these kind of new films like The Conspiracy, Willow Creek, which was directed by Bobcat Goldthwait, all the VHS sequels and whatnot. So, I mean, it's definitely an easy way to make films. I mean, Jesus, there's a found footage movie coming out next month made by a New Line called The Gallows. MTV has been, bumping the living shit out of it. And M. Night Shyamalan, who I'm sure are friends over at the Horrible Podcast, when we talked about this over the weekend, the film The Visit, which is the Hansel and Gretel ripoff. I mean, found footage is still a thing, and it's going to be a thing for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this film does something that none of the other ones do, which is actually instills within the viewer a real sense of terror.
Right. There are
because it's on the moon.
Yeah, and there are a lot of shots of the outside of the moon lander that are sort of landscape shots, and something's out there, and the fact that they intercut the action and the dialogue and stuff with these scenes, you sit there and you stare at the screen going, what's gonna move? When am I gonna see a monster? Oh my god, what's gonna happen?
I mean, at one point there's even almost, again, we're speaking about the fact that the film posits that this is leaked on the internet, this footage. It feels almost like Spare Change, that 9/11 kind of truther film.
Mm-hmm.
It's pointing out stuff in the video that they found. At one point, the camera will zoom in on something specifically, or it'll circle something or light something up on the screen to kind of draw your attention to something.
And it'll be a just barely moving sort of bulb.
Yeah, which kind of even more sells this film for me.
Mm-hmm.
In the, this is real. I mean, obviously, in the lead up to the film, Bob Weinstein was like, this was real. We found it. Okay. But, I mean, I think that this film really kind of changes, in my mind, what I perceive to be found footage. It shows that you can do found footage in a way that is not just, plodding and stupid.
Right. And it also helps that there's a reason for it. It's not like some dickhead at a party carries his digital camera around the whole time. It's not like, oh my god, there's a monster destroying the city, let me turn around and videotape it. It's like the government that hires us wants us to document our exploration of the moon, so we have cameras attached to everything. And that sort of decreases the pull out of the action when you go, okay, why the fuck are you videotaping this, man?
Right, it's just Cloverfield kind of did that because it's oh, it's at a party And, we're videotaping it for Rob's going away party, which, I mean, kudos to them for at least giving the characters a reason to be filming.
Right,
but you're totally
stop.
right. At some point, you put the fucking camera down and be like, we need to run now.
Right.
Because we're going to die. So I think that's probably one of the biggest successes of this film, in my mind, is that it actually gives a reason for the footage to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the fact that the performances are actually fantastic.
Right.
And the three main leads, Warren Christie, Lloyd Owen, and Ryan Robbins, I mean, they're the only three actors in the film.
Right, you get voices from everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, really only Warren Christie and Lloyd Owen, because Ryan Robbins is just kind of up in the
retrieval,
circling the planet.
Right, so you get from him, you get vast shots of the surface of the moon and a couple sort of cryptic foreshadowing lines. Like, there's one point where he's like, you look at the dark side of the moon and sometimes it feels like something's looking back. And you're like, yeah, your friends down on the moon are getting killed by weird monsters.
And, I mean, the film also is an extremely slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think really also helps that there's not just like a shitload of jump scares, because that is almost becoming a trademark of these found footage films, is like the jump scares.
Mm-hmm. I think I can only think of one, maybe two, if you count the first reveal of the monsters.
Well, there's also when they're in that crater, right?
Right, with the cosmonaut.
Which is fucking one of the most terrifying parts of the film. There's nothing more terrifying than someone using a flashing light to try and find their way.
Right, that's one thing. Like, the one thing in this movie that I was like, okay, why is this a thing? Is that their flashlights are like, pew, pew, and it's just like flashes like a strobe light.
Right.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Like the government didn't give them steady flashlights?
And we've seen this used before with the character in the first Saw movie, where he's using the camera to kind of...
because that's all he has.
Right. But in this one, yeah, I guess doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
I mean, unless it's something that was attached to actual spacesuits of the time, but I don't know anything about that, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, NASA said they didn't have much to do with this film.
Right.
Which is suspect, because maybe it is real.
They're writing it off.
What if this is actually just a redo of the real footage?
Like a dramatization of what actually exists?
Yeah.
Then it's terrifying.
That's amazing.
Because that means there are rocks on Earth that are actually spiders.
Right. Which is what the whole... Well, so let's talk about the plot a little bit, because we're getting ahead of ourselves. So, in kind of typical fashion, the way that NASA does things is they send, three guys to the moon, but
they make them tell their families they're going on a training exercise.
Right.
Because
this is all like hush-hush DOD
secret
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And they go to the moon, and in doing so, one of the guys is left in the orbiting the planet in the module, and the others are on Lem. And the two on Lem are going to put up these, I don't know, like detectors so they can detect ICBMs.
The cover story is that they're radars to detect missiles, but I think what it really is...
From this USSR.
Right, but then it turns out that that's not what...
Right, of course not. The military, of course, has ulterior motives. Big fucking surprise. The military is always up to no good.
Could the interference be coming from the things we set up? No. Can we turn it off to see? No.
Right. So, Anderson and Walker are on the moon, kind of just walking around trying to set up these detectors, and they find a dead cosmonaut.
Well, and also Anderson is like collecting moon rocks because they are specifically told to collect moon rocks when they go
there. And they find a lunar lander from the Soviets.
Russia, yeah.
And a dead cosmonaut. And the lunar lander still works.
Well, it turns on. They don't know if it can launch or not. But.
Right. So,
and it's like all tore up. Like the cosmonaut like scratched the surfaces and like pulled wires and like hit things and all that shit.
Yeah. And Anderson asks the guys at NASA, like, did you guys know about this? And they're like, just continue with the mission. Don't worry about it. Like, of course you fucking knew. And I think the DOD is like has to be listening in as well.
Right. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's the whole reason there are cameras like inside the ship. It's because this whole thing is set up for them to be guinea pigs to get video footage of what the creatures are. I mean, that's what I assume.
Well, that's what I assume too.
Because at one point,
I mean, NASA clearly knows. So that's kind of the big reveal of the movie is that the moon rocks on the moon are monsters.
Right, they're like spiders that sort of curl up into moon rock shaped things.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's like a hermit crab.
Right, and then as they get older, they get bigger. So at one point, you just see like a flash off in the distance of a couple really huge ones standing up.
Yeah. And NASA knows about them, and that's why they sent these poor schmoes to the moon. I mean, that's the only way to really put it. Is these guys are just poor sacks that have no idea. They trust their government with, the total trust, and the government in typical, conspiracy theory fashion, right? I mean, this film could not have existed without stuff like the X-Files or a lot of the conspiracy theory films that have come out in the past. Mm-hmm. Because, this is a product of kind of the general public's sense that the government is up to no good.
Right.
Which they may or may not be. I mean, I am a devout watcher of the X-Files, so I'm always I don't know how you feel about it, but
believe.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's the government. They have the resources to cover stuff up. So, I'm not like a 9/11 truther, but you know what I mean?
And half of our listening audience fails.
Boop. Hey, you know what? Why do people watch the X-Files? They watch the X-Files because they, believe in aliens or believe that the government knows about aliens.
Or because it's an entertaining show.
Yeah, but the show is entertaining, but a lot of that stuff is built into the show.
Right.
So that's kind of what drives this movie, its existence is, the moon landings, there was more going on. Because I'm assuming at some point they found out that those moon monsters existed through another moon landing.
Probably the Russian one. Because at the end, when Warren Christie's character, Ben Anderson, when he's like in the Russian lander, he's desperately calling out on the radio frequencies, and the Russians answer, and then
they transfer him to DOD.
Right, which means DOD and Russian Space Command have like a direct line, despite the fact that this is 1974 and we hate Russians.
I didn't even think about that. That makes sense.
That's why when he's like, this is the leader of the DOD, whatever his title is, Anderson's like, what?
Yeah. So, one of the kind of as the film progresses, we essentially just keep kind of seeing these flashes in the distance or flashes in kind of the corner of the camera of the moon monsters. And at one point, Walker goes outside
to fix their communications.
Because they were about to leave, and everything gets their launch is aborted because the lunar lander starts to just like shake. And Walker goes outside, and he sees like tracks in the I guess the surface of the moon. I was gonna say moon sand, but
weird little like curvy tracks.
Which, by the way, is fucking horrifying.
The idea that there are things that aren't human on the moon.
Like place yourself in that position, right?
Stepping out of the moon in a spacesuit that is the only thing preventing you from dying of oxygen deprivation.
And you see on the ground footsteps that are not human.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And you're just like, oh no. We gotta go.
Right,
We have to leave now.
He says something like, there are tracks, and Anderson says, you think it's the other cosmonaut? And Walker's like, no, these aren't human tracks. And they both
like, well, let's just leave. Let's just blast off the moon. We'll figure something out. So while Walker is outside the lander, he gets attacked by a moon monster.
But it's not. He doesn't get like attacked from outside. One of the rocks that Anderson picked up earlier he brought it into the ship,
and then it ends up in his suit.
Right, and it goes inside Walker's suit, and then when he's out in space on the surface of the moon, it like opens up and starts crawling around in his suit,
which leads to one of the most terrifying scenes in the film.
Right, just
where
like
you see
a dude facing away from the window in the camera, screaming about something being in his suit, and
then something jumps onto the kind of the glass dome on the front. You see it like crawling, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, he like turns around so you can see his face, and something just like runs across the inside of his helmet.
Yeah. And then Walker gets brought back inside the lander, and they find a wound on his chest. And Anderson takes out a moon rock from inside of his chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moon rock, and then fucking Anderson or Walker destroys the moon rock.
With like, he hits it with a hammer.
And it goes everywhere because that was a great idea.
Uh-huh.
And so that kind of leads to the end of the film where Walker runs off after destroying the oxygen in the lander. And Anderson goes after him. And Anderson's just like, oh, well, I gotta get out of here because Walker is becoming more and more kind of...
No, that's not how that happens.
Well, he crashes the rover.
Right, because they both agree. So Walker's getting like more and more infected, and weird black lines are leading away from his wound. And they're like, okay, we're going to get out of here and get off. We're going to use the Russian lander to blast off and go home. And as they're driving the rover, Walker's like, it's just me they want. Just leave me here. And he tries to like jump off the rover.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then as Anderson tries to like pull him and keep him on, the rover flips over, and that's when you get the shot of the big spider things sort of coming up off the surface of the moon and like walking towards them.
Yeah. And I'm assuming at that point Anderson is already infected. He gets infected after that point.
I mean, I would assume from the hints given on camera, I would assume he gets infected when Walker breaks the spider. Because he's got the bloodshot eyes when he's on the lander before it takes off.
Right. Yeah, he like looks into the camera, which is just like a scene. You're just like, well, nope.
Right, he looks in the camera and he's like, I'm coming home. And he's got really bloodshot eyes, and you know he's fucking infected.
Yeah. So Anderson gets to the Soviet lander.
Yeah, before he gets to the lander, he sees Walker again, standing on the edge of a crater.
Oh, yeah.
And Walker's like, just go home without me. I'm stuck. That's it for me. I'm done. Just go home. And Anderson starts walking closer, and something reaches up out of the crater and yanks Anderson back down. I mean, yanks Walker into the crater, and Anderson chases after him, and you get the second scene with the flashing light. And eventually you just, like, every time it flashes, you see more and more of the spider crab things standing up.
Yeah, that's right.
And Anderson books it to the Walker, or to the
lander.
Right.
And while he's in the lander, he's able to get it turned on, and we kind of already talked about this, where they contact NASA through the Russians, essentially. And he doesn't even get to talk to NASA, he gets to talk to the DOD.
And the DOD goes, you're an infection risk, son.
Yeah, sorry.
We're leaving you on the moon to die.
Yeah, and then they call and tell the guy in the other thing orbiting the planet, they're like, he's infected. Do not try to save him.
Right, because Anderson takes off, and John Gray is like, I'm coming to save you, buddy. And then, as he's waiting for Anderson to get out into space in the Russian lander, they call John Gray, and they tell him to leave his friend floating in the atmosphere around the moon to die. And if he doesn't leave his friend to die, they will stop sending him navigation packets to get back to Earth himself.
Right, and he'll just be trapped.
Right.
And as Anderson is lifting off the planet, he's, obviously there's gravity on the moon as he lifts off. these moon rocks, when he breaks gravity, these moon rocks lift up.
And they're like floating around him.
Yeah, and they turn into the crab monsters.
And he just screams.
Yeah, and he gets attacked by them, and he crashes into the other guy's capsule.
Right, because they're trying to line up in orbit, and when Anderson gets attacked, he doesn't have the time or the ability to slow down his acceleration, and so he ends up just shooting like a bullet into the retriever thing.
Yeah, and they blow up, and that's the end of the movie.
Right, and then you get those little still shots of them at the barbecue before they left with such and such officially died in whatever, his body was never recovered.
The cover-up ends up being that, one of them died in training, one of them died in a plane crash, none of their bodies were ever found. And then they go on to say, and then there were moon rocks given out to all the officials.
And then those moon rocks were stolen.
Yeah. So,
and then the little www.lunartruth.com thing pops up.
Yeah. And that's the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this movie.
Yeah, it's a cool, suspenseful monster movie.
And it's also like one of a kind, really.
Right. I don't know if there's any other movies. I don't know if there are any other horror movies that take place on the surface of the moon.
Like this one does. And it also, it really has this, just kind of ever-present feeling of just claustrophobia. And, it's a claustrophobic set, I'm sure, to shoot on to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But, they do a really good job of, making it feel claustrophobic and terrifying. Because it is.
Right.
I really like it. I think it's great. And I'm surprised that it was poorly reviewed because, it got, people were saying that, it was, Paranormal Activity ripoff.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty kind of cheap.
Well, it's the only similarity is that it's found footage. And that's the only similarity. They're astronauts in space, not a couple that just bought a house. They're being attacked by weird rock monsters and not some ghost demon that wants to kill the chick in the couple. And you see the monsters. They're things that are there. You don't just see the chick doing weird stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to start a new section on these culture casts. We're going to call it "What the Tomato Thinks." And I just want to let's talk about what Rotten Tomatoes says. So, general consensus for Rotten Tomatoes 24%, which means it's rotten.
What?
Yeah. Critics' consensus: it's a boring, suspense-free Paranormal Activity ripoff that feels long, even at just 90 minutes.
Why are we adding this section? I never agree with Rotten Tomatoes, and it just makes me angry.
I'm adding this section because I'm curious as to how you feel about that, and if there's any kind of retort you could give to that.
Apollo 18 has...
Everything is a ripoff of Paranormal Activity if you look at it as just, it's found footage, so it's a ripoff.
But Paranormal Activity would then just be a ripoff of Blair Witch Project.
Yes, agreed.
I hate Rotten Tomatoes because, much like us, anyone can be a critic. And Rotten Tomatoes is It's
an aggregator.
Right, it's an aggregator of reviews, and so you get people whose opinions you agree with and you like, and that, hey, maybe they like the same kind of movies as I do, and then you get that paired with people that like Transformers. And to be perfectly honest, I think that the horror genre as a whole is completely and utterly misunderstood by Hollywood as a whole. It definitely doesn't get,
it's not taken seriously.
Right, it doesn't really get respect.
And that was something I kind of wish we had talked about with the guys at the Horrible Podcast. And next time we do a Horrible Culture Cast with them, I want to broach this subject, but I want to broach it with you. We've done kind of, this will be the second month that we've done, in the history of the site, horror movies are the main focus, because a lot of the monster movies are considered horror movies. Do you feel like horror movies get a fair shake?
No. I mean, I think the general idea is, oh, it's a horror movie, that means it's going to be blood and gore and, sci-fi original. And those definitely are things. Those definitely happen. But Apollo 18, there's hardly any gore. There's like a desiccated, dried out Russian cosmonaut, and then the infections just is like black infection lines on their body and bloodshot eyes.
Right.
And it's not over the top buckets of red paint dropped on top of someone's head, which is what I think Hollywood thinks horror movies are.
And I think that this film has more in common with Jaws than Paranormal Activity. Because, this movie doesn't show very much. It shows just enough. In Jaws, at the end, it kind of becomes a monster fest. But, because Steven Spielberg's monster in Jaws, the shark, didn't work half the time, they couldn't show it. And it had to be a different movie. And this is something I talked with Thunder Levin, who wrote Sharknado, about. In changing the way the film was positioned, it was an inherently more interesting film. It was a film about the characters, not the monsters. Mm-hmm. And that's what this movie becomes in my mind.
And Alien gets that a lot, too. That whole, Alien gets that, the monster isn't seen until well into the film. And so people are more afraid of it than they would be if you were just like, boom, big scary monster.
Right. And I agree. I feel like the characters in this movie are interesting. The monsters, they're okay. But I wasn't watching this movie for the monsters anyways. I watched this movie because it's more or less a bottle episode of a TV show on a significantly bigger budget. But it's also, you're going on the ride with the characters. That's kind of the whole point of found footage. And
it has the same effect on me, space has the same effect on me as submarines, which we've discussed at length. You don't even really need to be that engrossing for me to feel tension when your characters are in a tiny metal box that barely separates them from painful death.
Right. And I think that for this movie to be successful in my mind, it had to have some scares, which it does. It has to have a level of intrigue because it is essentially an alternate fiction, an alternate history film. And, it has to have some interesting characters. And I think that on those three levels, it's successful.
Right. And Rotten Tomatoes giving it a 24 is bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think calling it boring is bullshit, too. I think the only people that call this movie boring are the people that, not to say that I'm not a member of the generation that has this issue, but the sort of attention deficit disorder generation. Is a lot of our media is very boom, jump, 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 next thing, boom, boom, boom. And this, a lot like classic westerns that we'll get to talk about eventually.
Next month.
Right. There's a lot of slow tension build.
Yeah. And this is not a fast film at all.
No, and I like that better. I like getting to feel the tension of the movie. I like getting to see characters' behaviors not be told them. And I do like, I'm going to write a written review about Feast, and that movie is all just one after the other. Boom, death, monster, acid.
But that can be good if done right.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's not one or the other for me, but
right.
I think that for a lot of people, it has become one or the other. And that's why I think this might have a bad rap as being a boring film, because I think a lot of people don't watch movies and look at that style as opposed to what they're used to and what gets pumped out all the time.
And to be fair, I'm the biggest convert for this film because I hate found footage movies. And this movie is a found footage film. Even though it's not in the traditional sense, I still really like it. And I want more people to watch this movie because I think this is a legitimately good horror movie and one that kind of stands alone in the genre, especially the found footage genre.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I do like that it didn't make a shitload of money, but it had a budget of $5 million and made $25 million.
Yeah.
So at least I'm glad that it was positive.
Yeah.
I would have really hated for this movie to be one of those films that got a bad rating on Rotten Tomatoes or poor, online reviews, and nobody went and saw it, and it ended up the people that made it ended up losing money. I like to see filmmakers, the actors, the producers, the directors, the special effects guys, all that stuff. I like to see them at least make their money back and get paid.
Yeah, I agree. What did you think of the performances in the film?
I really like them. I mean, really, the two big ones are Warren Christie and Lloyd Owen, and I think Ryan Robbins does a good job with what he's given, because his character gets to have that whole I've trained all this time to go up in space, and I have to float up here.
Right.
And so he plays, which
is a real thing.
Right, and he totally plays that well. But, he's overshadowed by the fact that most of the movie is watching Lloyd Owen and Warren Christie be just absolutely scared shitless and confused about what's going on.
Right.
And I think Warren Christie was probably the guy that I most recognized, but I can't remember what from. I can't remember what I've seen him in, but he's probably the one that I recognize the most. He does a good job too of that, the sort of family man taking a risk for duty and so sort of following his dreams, Mm-hmm. But he doesn't super overplay it the way that some movies really overplay the whole family thing. He doesn't pull out a picture of his kid and force Lloyd Owen to look at it over and over again. You get the picture that he drops one time, and you get the little recording of his son twice. And I think that's good, and it's better that way than if they were just over and over, hey, this guy has kids.
Right. I agree. I mean, that's something that's, kind of taken for granted in a lot of found footage films, is actually giving the characters something interesting to be, not just to do.
Right, instead of just bodies running around on camera.
And they're going to die.
Right.
I mean, you go into this movie knowing everyone's going to die. Mm-hmm. But, at least you're given a reason to root for the characters.
And even Lloyd Owen's thing, his infection sort of driving him crazy, that's totally a thing in movies, but even that is done well and differently and maybe even better than other times that it's been used.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that one point where he just sort of gets up out of his cot and starts hitting the cameras with the hammer, and he's like, "You're not gonna watch me die!" And I was like, oh shit, man, that's true. They are totally just watching him die.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, what ends up happening, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, I guess final thoughts and, skip it, watch it, and best performance.
Definitely watch it. It's definitely a much more entertaining movie than the reviews put it out to be. Fucking Rotten Tomatoes. I think best performance, I'm going to go with Lloyd Owen. Because as much as I like the other two guys in this movie, that character, as much as it is a trope of sort of horror genres, I really love it when the whole descent into pseudo-madness is done well. Because it can be done really poorly, but when it's done well, it's really tingly, and I feel it,
Right.
And that's always to me personally, the most entertaining character in any of these infection movies.
Is the one who becomes infected.
Right, and you get to watch him go just wacko.
Kind of like in Prometheus.
Yes, but not the way Prometheus did it.
Yeah, well, that movie's a whole other problem. That movie has its own set of problems.
That's getting a sequel?
Yeah. And then there's a sequel to Alien by Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to go with watch it as well. Again, if you kind of heard bad news about this movie and that it wasn't worth watching, I would say check it out anyways, especially if you like horror films. If you like horror movies, you're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing this movie. It really isn't like any other found footage movie I've ever seen. And again, take it from me, I hate found footage films. I hate the biggest found footage film of them all, Cloverfield. I mean, to me, that feels like the pinnacle of found footage hitting the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could make the argument that Blair Witch beats it, but
I mean, I never watched Blair Witch Project until I started getting big into movies.
Yeah,
I heard about it, but
Blair Witch is a whole nother beast. I feel like Blair Witch is more of a mockumentary than found footage.
Mm-hmm. Whereas Cloverfield came out and everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it had the full alternate world website, fake shell companies created to let people research the people in the movie, products that were created. Like, it had that whole, the works on marketing.
Tag Ruato and Slusho, and yeah, just they went all in, and that movie sucked.
Mm-hmm.
No offense, the movie sucked. I will go down swinging. That movie, watched it again last week, it still had the same problems from when I saw it the first time. It didn't change. And frankly, it's gotten worse with time. Because films like this have come out that have refined the found footage genre and made movies like Cloverfield just look like big budget, made them just look like big budget flash in the pan movies.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's talking about Cloverfield now. I mean, 7 years later, no one's talking about it. It never got a sequel, even though it was supposed to. You know, I mean, Apollo 18's not going to get a sequel, but I think that that's okay.
Well, I don't know how they would do a sequel.
I mean,
Apollo
they could.
18.
I mean, they have it set up at the end. They could just do it on Earth.
Oh, God, no.
Which would not have anything to do with Apollo 18.
Right. It would just be the spider monsters on Earth. Oh, no.
Yeah. Which would inherently probably not be that great.
And also cheapen this one.
Yeah. So we had an interview. I had an interview with Lloyd Owen.
You didn't pick a best performance.
Ooh. Right. Best performance, Lloyd Owen. Really, I mean, you know, like you said, he's able to pull off a performance that is kind of the tying factor of this film. It ties this film together. Because otherwise it could have just come off as he's the infected guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he does something interesting with it. And he's a likable character even before he gets infected.
And even after he gets infected, like, he clearly goes insane. Yeah.
It's not full on immediately either.
And he clearly goes sort of nuts, and he starts talking about how he can hear the aliens and all that stuff, but he also keeps saying, leave me, don't follow me, it's me they want, just let me die and go without me.
Yeah, he's still trying to save his friend.
Right, which is it's sort of better than just him being
infected.
Right, and going nuts and, like, trying to murder people.
Yeah. So I got to speak with Lloyd Owen about Apollo 18, so we'll play that, and when we come back, we'll talk about the next film we watched, Pitch Black. What initially drew you to the role of Nathan Walker in Apollo 18?
I was sent the script, the original script, which was written by Brian Miller, which was part of, I think it was a bidding war at AFM, actually, which the Weinsteins won. He'd won, the team all members of it had wanted, there's a film festival in Kazakhstan, and that script had won the film festival as well. So it was a fantastic, tight little sci-fi thriller. And as soon as I read that, I thought I really want to meet for this one. So that was very exciting, actually. Yeah, good script. And so that's what drew me in. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the film, you play the American astronaut Nathan Walker. What did you have to do to prepare for that role?
Well, we were very lucky, actually, because one of the guys who worked in NASA a lot during that period was a guy called Jerry Griffin. So Jerry was actually, if you see Apollo 13, he's one of his characters featured. He as a man is featured in the movie as one of the mission control guys. So Jerry was with us from before when we rehearsed and shooting, and we had all the questions that we needed to know, and so much film. We got lots of incredible amounts of library pictures of all the astronauts and all the self-tapes. So we had a lot of resources in terms of research. It was quite rich in that sense, and just having Jerry on set all day to talk to and ask the questions, because I think that the major point about the movie was we wanted to, it was about verisimilitude, so we really wanted to try and replicate exactly all that footage that exists about the astronauts, because they took a lot of film of themselves going up there. So I think Gonzalo wanted to make that as close to possible, also because the movie was being sold as if it was found footage, so it's very much, it had to be right. So there was lots of stuff. Yeah, it was great. It was a fantastic experience to be so close to Jerry too. It was good.
And, In the film, like you mentioned, it is kind of billing itself as, this is real, which I think is one of the reasons the film works so well, is because it's it's a different take on found footage. Normally, it's just some people in the woods, or why do they have a camera rolling, as opposed to there's a reason that the cameras are rolling in Apollo 18. It's the footage that's being taken from inside the module. So I'm kind of curious. Had you watched any found footage films before you did Apollo 18?
I've only seen bits. My Little Eye was an English movie, which was based a little bit on the, I don't know if you know that movie, just based on some of that Big Brother stuff where the cameras are always rolling on a game show. So that was part of it. I'd seen bits of Blair Witch, obviously, but not too much. No, I hadn't really. I just kept myself as close as I could to the truth of what it would have been like for a couple of NASA astronauts to go up there in the 70s, and relied on the footage that we had from NASA and from Jerry, really.
Right.
And I think Gonzalo, as the director, what he was really excited about making it was the restrictions placed on him in terms of that. So there was only, we had 3 GoPro cameras stuck in the lunar module, which they built to scale as an exact replica, which is absolutely tiny. I have to say, it's amazing that those guys, particularly on the later Apollo missions, they were up there for 15 days or something in those modules. I couldn't, both me and Warren Christie couldn't work out how they did it in such confined space. But yeah, so I think with the GoPros, and then we, Warren and I, the other actor, we spent most of the time. Oftentimes it was too small to get the whole crew in there, so I was actually shooting him with a bigger camera than the astronauts used, obviously. Right. The restrictions placed on Gonzalo, I think he quite enjoyed that. We quite enjoyed that. I mean, to a certain extent, it meant it was harder to get in, to find a reason to get into close-ups. Oftentimes it was played on a wide, so you're quite reliant on the story to help you through, because from a performance perspective, it's harder to get, to find a justified reason for the astronauts to be handheld all the time, if you know what I mean. So that was the challenge for Gonzalo. I think he did an amazing job, actually. So, yeah.
And you mentioned the lunar module set, which is I think that's one of the most successful things the film does, is that it really conveys this sense of claustrophobia. And what was it like filming on that lunar module set?
I mean, it was absolutely exhausting, actually, because we had the astronaut, the gear that we had was, I think they were made for the Clint Eastwood movie. It's just slipped my mind about astronauts.
Space Cowboys?
Space Cowboys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was that gear. Because one of the questions when I was driving around LA and suddenly got a call from the agent, I hadn't quite got the job at that point. And I actually called me and said, how tall are you? And I thought, wow, this is a leading question for an astronaut movie. So I made myself a couple of inches shorter than I was, because I thought, if I go too tall, there's going to be some reason they're not going to be able to fit me in the module. But actually, it was about all the gear the astronauts wear, because they've been made for that movie, and I think they were using those to kind of save on money as well. So to actually get us into those suits was a really difficult process. It took about 45 minutes to get us in properly, and then to try and move around in them, because they were made, when we did Space Cowboys, they were made with a certain weight that are heavier than the actual outfits that the guys wore, equipment, spacesuits, because just to help replicate that slowness of movement that comes with the the 0G gravity and stuff, or 6 gravity. So it was a very, very small space, and to try and get lights in there, camera, crew, sound department, we always had to call in and out, and Gonzalo wanted it built exactly to scale and to the right size for the actors to feel that constriction and restriction. So yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a marathon at the job, but it was very exciting to really feel what it would have been like for them in there.
And you talk about the spacesuits. And I think, with the budget that the film had, which was a relatively small budget, everything looks really convincing. Partially because of the found footage, which kind of adds this. It doesn't add the layer of sheen that most space films have, including the scenes when you're on the moon, which I think are some of the most successful scenes in the film in kind of conveying the terror that your characters feel. What was it like filming on that that moon set.
Yeah, we were on an industrial sort of farming site, so they took over a huge farm hangar, and created this lunar landscape, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it was big too, so we had some scope to move around, We were actually on wires for a bit. We played around with that idea of trying to, every now and again we were suspended to try and get that bounce, which they could take the wires out in post and stuff. And that was successful at times, but I think it was more Gonzalo and Jose's skill with the camera to replicate that, because in the big movies, in the Apollo 13 and stuff, you have to go on the vomit comet. You fly up in an airplane, drop from 30,000 feet to 10,000 feet, and that's when you get the weightlessness. Obviously, we couldn't afford to do that on this movie, so it was about trying to trick it. But so again, that was tiring too, because at times we would have to be walking more slowly than we would, trying to keep a certain rhythm of movement and lightness. When the suits are so heavy to try and kind of bounce, and Gonzalo would say, bounce a bit more, lighter, jump. And you think, Christ, Gonzalo, please don't ask me to jump anymore in this. I haven't got any thighs left because I'm exhausted. So, that was quite, we laughed our way through it, Warren and I. But it was, they certainly did a terrific job on it.
And what was it like working with Gonzalo? Because it was his first, English language feature film.
I just think he's a master. Given the script that he had, because we had a lot of changes coming through all the time as well. It was never quite settled, that script. The original one was a great piece of work. It started as a sci-fi thriller, and it started to turn a bit more into a horror film. So he was having to adapt and roll with the new stuff that was coming in and try and shape this movie. But we used to call him, Warren and I used to call him Yoda. He was like a Zen master of taking the punches, working out how to shift it and how to keep the momentum going and how to keep shooting. I think he's a very, very good director. And his initial sort of calling card movie, I think it was, I can't remember the English title. It's King of the Hill, I think. Is that right? Have you got it in front of you?
Yeah.
His first, yeah. It is King of the Hill, yeah. Is a sublime piece of work. Sort of a mixture between, it reminded me of Deliverance, actually. I think Gonzalo is a very, very good director, great with the actors, and very open to ideas. So it was a fantastically creative process for us all. Warren and I enjoyed it hugely.
And you spoke of Warren Christie, who you're in the lunar the lunar module set with for a large portion of the film, and then you're on the moon set, kind of trouncing around with him as well. What was it like working with him?
He's a very funny boy. So he's got a great sense of humor. So we had a good laugh. And the audition process had been quite intense for he and I, because when we first did it, we were all, like 6 of us were flown up to Vancouver, and they said, look, pack a suitcase. You're either going up for the weekend of the sort of workshop audition, but also if you get the gig, you're going to need to pack a case for 10 weeks. So it was quite a hard suitcase to pack. So him and I have been through this 2-day kind of workshop audition with 4 other actors, which was a lot of improvisation, and Gonzalo was putting us through our paces. So we'd come through the fire already together. So we were well bonded by the time we started, actually. And we've remained pals, him and I. We had a really good experience on that. We're very excited to do that script. And look, hey, when you get a chance to play one of the great, American icons, some of those great heroes, there's very few men who've walked on the moon. I like to think I'm close to it. At least I'm in my mind, anyway.
Right.
Jerry Griffin said I'm a good astronaut, so that was enough for me.
Well, that's good at least, right? Having an actual, astronaut, someone who is involved with the astronauts, tell you that. So. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. He's a charmer and a liar, but there you go. What are you gonna do?
So your character in the film, about halfway through the film, gets infected with a moon rock, which turns out to be a little creature, like a moon rock spider. What was kind of that process like for you, in your mind, creating a character that's, mind is slowly deteriorating?
Well, part of the original script was that what you didn't quite know whether the guy had actually been infected by something, or whether he was simply starting to go out of his mind by the claustrophobia. That was what so interested me about it. It was either a mental health issue, or there were aliens out there, or something that was infecting you. So just trying to keep that balance, try and keep it as grounded as I could. I guess on some sense, an infection is an infection wherever it comes from, that gets into the mind. But it's a sort of, for me and Gonzalo, we talked about just that level of insanity that can come from a claustrophobic environment whereby there's no exit, there's no way out, and the mind starts eating the mind, really.
Right.
In terms of the rock stuff, that didn't come till quite later on in the shoot, Actually, there was a moment where, because, we didn't have the budget, so it's only, at one point I'm having to get a rock to move, because that was something new that started happening, because that wasn't there originally, and because it was so low budget, they actually tied a string around this rock, and they just started pulling this rock and shooting it, and Warren and I just looked at each other and thought, are we going to be in that movie where there's a rock moving with being pulled by a piece of string? So yeah, we've laughed a lot about that, him and I, since, about going, oh, okay, here we go. So yeah.
And how much makeup did you have to go through, and prosthesis to do some of that work? Because at one point they do pull a moon rock out of your chest, which I'm assuming was a prosthetic.
That's right. Yeah. I wish I had to go and have modelled when I was in LA, because we shot the first, whatever it was, 8 or 9 weeks, and then we went away for like a couple of months, and then we came back for another week when there were some rewrites, much later on. So there was still a lot of adjustment and time to change that. But yeah, and the prosthetics, I think, whatever the call, I think the set call was about 7 o'clock, but I was in the chair from about 2:30 a.m. with a specialist guy, and we took a long time doing that stuff. It was great, actually. It was, it doesn't happen every day. I think by about week 2, I was a bit bored of being in the chair at 2:30 in the morning, but he made it look great, actually. I thought some of that was really good work that he'd done there. And
later in the film, you and Warren Christie are kind of on a lunar rover driving, and your character says something to the effect of, I can't go back with you, leave me. And you and Warren Christie crash the lunar rover. And how involved were you in that scene?
Yeah, that was, well, there's a mixture, because I think at that point my gold visor might have been down, so I think there was a stuntman in for that one, and I think the lunar module just kept going wrong, so that there was nearly, I think someone nearly got their head taken off at one point, literally got their head taken off with that one, but it was all good again. So there was always, whenever the gold visor was down, Warren and I were saying, dude, surely you can get us a stand-in for that, but Gonzalo always wanted us there, but we were always hopeful that if the visor was down, we could get an afternoon off or something.
Right.
But, they built a fantastic model. I mean, actually, it went forwards and backwards at the lunar rover. Yeah, so, it's good. Is that what you mean?
I was just curious kind of how involved you were with that scene, because obviously, I mean, it did have some stunt work involved with it, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you shoot the bits as much as you can. I mean, again, Gonzalo wanted to keep it as alive and as real as he could. So wherever Warren and I could do that stuff, and we were doing it, I think at the very last minute they probably cut in and used a stuntman for the final bit.
And towards the end of the film, your character kind of disappears into this crater, and then Warren Christie goes to the Soviet lunar module, and he's sitting there trying to get it to work. And your character comes to the window and starts pounding on it with a wrench and, let me in, let me in. Kind of, what was it like filming your death scene in the film?
Yeah, I remember it well. And again, I think the script was slightly different. It was a different place in the story that Nate comes back at. so again, trying to tell the tale of the guy who's been away and what's happened to him and where he is. And funnily enough, when Warren and I auditioned that, we did a long improvisation around that stuff about essentially how do you manipulate a guy to open up the lunar module to let you in. You know, you either threaten or you cajole or you try and try and pluck his heartstrings, saying that you're going to die, that you've got to let him in. So there was we'd already done a whole load of work on that kind of scenario about whether you, so it was a much longer set piece than the bit that ended up in the movie. You know, I think, you know, the wrench stuff was by the end of it all, it looked like he wasn't going to let me in, you know, so that's when the wrench came out, you know, and that's when part of that, you know, all the insanity is deeply embedded in him at that point, you know. Because if you took the moving rocks out of the way, you still got the original idea that ultimately he's a guy who loses his mind.
Right.
And, you know, sadly you can't bring a lunar module back with just one person. I mean, physically it's impossible, actually. Which I think was Brian Miller's initial idea, that two guys go up there and then if you lose one, there's no going home, you know.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, he tries and fails because of the moon rocks coming to life and, you know, killing him. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad luck, hey?
Yeah. Right. Right.
After all that.
How do you kind of feel about being involved with the film? Obviously, you know, the film, I think, was unfairly panned at the box office because I don't think a lot of people got it. And, you know, it drew comparisons to films like Paranormal Activity and other kind of found footage films. I mean, how do you feel looking back? The film's been out for a couple years now. The film's been out for 4 years. How do you kind of feel looking back on the film and kind of the way it kind of was, you know, received by the critics?
Well, here's the thing, you know, that I really, like I said, I think like about, I'd say 3/4 of that movie is amazingly well put together, and the suspense is really powerful. You know, I think the moon rocks thing was hard to pull off. In terms of keeping that tension alive. That's always the tough thing with movies like that, is how do you maintain that tension, then how do you find a payoff for it towards the end? I mean, I think in terms of the marketing, what's hard, what I felt was that people, they expected it to be a particular thing and were disappointed because their expectation was in the wrong direction for where the film actually was. And I think that played into what people felt about it. But I think, you know, if you look at the original NASA footage, you have a very, you know, you almost have a documentary of what it was like going up there. And I think Gonzalo built the tension of what was going to happen up there, and what was going wrong. I think he built it really, really well for that 3/4 of that movie. So yeah, and I think also, there was a lot of expectation from all of us, you know, and you know, it tested really well and it was predicted to do much better. But my suspicion is that, people were expecting something different from that because of the hype around it. And I always wondered with that film whether it'll find a little cult audience actually in the end of people who, but it's very specific to certain, you have to be of that generation too that was taken away by NASA, that really followed all the Apollo mission. And if you are in that world, then you really enjoyed that film because there was a lot of nostalgia in that sense. And I guess the only other argument is that if you have two guys in a lunar module, that's not within most people's experience of life, whereas the Blair Witch Project, lots of people have been in a forest, paranormal activity, etc., etc. It's much closer to most people's life experience. So you can project yourself into those movies in a way it's much harder to do with you know, being one of the 15 men in the world who have ever been to the moon.
Right.
So, you know, I think that those are some of those issues. But given what the script was when it was originally there, and how Gonzalo and Bob Weinstein, everyone shaped up, they did an amazing job. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm not of the generation that would have been, you know, taken by the NASA landing on the moon, but I think the film, at least for me personally, it plays to the conspiracy theorist in me as well. Because I mean, you know, I'm not sure the film could exist without shows like the X-Files kind of paving the way for it, because there's a lot of that in the film. I mean, the video that you're watching is supposed to essentially be leaked on the internet. And, that's something that you would expect to see on a show like The X-Files or Fringe or any one of those shows that deal with, weird science and conspiracy theories. So I personally would have thought that the film would have had a bigger audience as well. And I'm kind of disappointed that, I've talked to some people about it. I'm like, oh, did you see Apollo 18? They're like, no, I didn't. It looked kind of like a rip-off Paranormal Activity. I was like, it's way more than that. It's really kind of the only period piece found footage film that I can think of. And that's kind of, in my mind, the best way of describing it is kind of a period piece because, it is taking place during the 50s or the 60s with the moon landing and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And I think it's psychologically, intriguing as well. You have those two men in there and just that relationship and how they work it out between them and how it deteriorates. The hard thing is to try and get much biography about those two men within the space of the film. That's the other thing in terms of trying to care about them. And like I said, some of those restrictions that you have in terms of the camera, you can't quite get into it. You can't quite get into them and know them well enough in the time that you have. But just in terms of the tension that he builds, I mean, like you, there's plenty of there are plenty of people who have seen it and who have absolutely loved it in that sense and really been very frightened by it. Found it, the gradual turning of the screw, quite powerful when I've watched it. So yeah, it's interesting. I just feel the more people who come to it, they may well have a different opinion of it.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah.
In your opinion, what is the kind of the most memorable or successful scene in your mind from the film?
That's a very good question. I think definitely when Warren's character's going down the crater looking for Nate and hitting that flash gun, trying to get down there is very powerful. A sense of how alone he is at that point. The desolation of space around him. I particularly loved shooting all that stuff, only because it's so close to the original when they're interviewing the guys before they go for the lunar module. When at the end of the movie he shows that sort of handheld sort of cine camera stuff of them all just kind of relaxing with their families, and it's just very affecting to me. That the fact they got JFK in there talking about those astronauts and deciding to go to the moon. I think off the top of my head, that's too. I also really like the scene where he goes to black and white, where Nate's talking about some mission control, trying to work out the fact they knew that there were Russian cosmonauts on the moon. And again, playing into what you're talking about with the conspiracy theory, that seems very possible to me. Very possible that the Russians had got up there as well. So not being informed clearly about what that mission was.
Right.
And just them hanging out in the lunar module too, all that. Again, if you've seen the NASA footage, it's very, very real what Gonzalez has created there. It's exactly the kind of the hang out the life, some of the bits of humour between them. So I'll answer your question by not really answering it at all, haven't I? Because I haven't come up with one scene. Sorry about that.
No. I mean, I would, if you asked me the same question, I would have a hard time picking, my favorite scene from the film. So, I think for me, the scene that sticks out for me and one of my other writers when we sat down and spoke about the film, it involves you directly, is when you go outside after you try to take off in the lunar module and, Warren Christie is inside the lunar module and you're outside, kind of looking around. You say, oh, there are footprints. They're not human. And then you go, oh shit, there's something in my suit. Yeah. That is insanely terrifying.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the more terrifying, if not the most terrifying scene in the film.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I take your point, and I think there's also something, isn't there, about Warren's character just being alone in the lunar module at that point, not being able to do anything and freaking out. And you think, now that they're apart, if he's out there and he's that's real aloneness. I mean, it's one thing to be alone in your kitchen. It's another thing to be alone stuck on the moon with a vacuum outside you, and someone potentially dying or going mad outside the lunar module. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So, since we kind of are, talking about monster movies this month, I'm kind of curious, do you kind of have a favorite monster movie? Did you grow up watching films like Godzilla and, stuff like that?
I think, years ago, when I was a kid, I think it was King Kong was the first, that first King Kong was the one I saw. So I suppose, that's my earliest reference for that. But I don't have I can't think of one off the top of the bat other than that affected me the most. But yeah, there's something about the King Kong. We had, I've got my memory so bad these days. The original black and white one, but in the 70s there would have been another one, whichever one that was. You probably know.
That one actually had Jeff Bridges in it.
That's right. Yeah. But no, I can't say that I have a huge lexicon in my film library of monster movies. Yeah. To be honest.
Well, I mean,
your favorite?
I mean, I think the easy answer for me is Jaws. I think Jaws is kind of the.
Oh, would you consider that a monster movie?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's Spielberg doing a monster movie, so it's extremely elevated. It's not just a monster running around killing people. So.
Well, here you go. I mean, I'm totally with you then. In which case, yeah, I'll jump on your bandwagon, Jaws, for sure. And I was talking that with some pals the other day, just saying, which everybody knows, the most extraordinary thing about, the elements of luck that come into a film is that they couldn't actually agree on a successfully frightening model. So they just didn't show it, and the suspense of that movie is what it's all about. I think Apollo 18 has that suspense until you get to the rock, and then you go, oh, okay, well, I know it's a rock now. So all of a sudden, it's really hard to be frightened by the rock, isn't it, once you see the rock,
right,
as it were. And with Jaws, you didn't get to see Jaws until Robert Shaw gets eaten in half, right? That's the point. And then it's pretty brutal at that point. And then the film, then we know what we need to know. So yeah, in fact, I do think, again, going back to that, building up, leaving it to the audience's imagination is the most powerful thing to do. And Gonzalez definitely did that in Apollo 18 for a large chunk of the movie. Yeah, and that's what's frightening. That's always frightening when that happens, when you get your mind involved, your own mind involved, right?
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to segue into that. In the film, because I'm assuming maybe because of budget restrictions, or just because they wanted to have that kind of leave it up to the audience. They don't show the monsters very much. And with a budget of $5 million, I mean, I think that, there's obviously some budget restrictions in showing the monsters as much as they wanted to, which is something that, Spielberg did in Jaws. And, and then he did it in other films, and other people have tried to, kind of mimic it in their films, like with the new Godzilla film that came out. They kind of tried to do that, and I don't think they were successful. But Apollo 18, I would say, is the first time that I've seen it outside of Jaws that it is successful. So,
Interesting, yeah. Yeah. I just suddenly thought about Alien as well, of course. That's the other one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That original one. And then you finally see him, and then, similar idea. But yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you say it, and I'm particularly glad for Gonzalez. I do think, he helmed and mastered that movie brilliantly. Yeah. I mean, he really did. I think he really understands the form. If you do see, I don't know if have you ever seen his Spanish film, King of the Hill?
I haven't yet.
Please watch it. It's an absolute treat of a movie. If you want to feel that suspense and that fear and that build up and the sort of isolation, it's a really, really, really top movie. Yeah, he's very clever.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone involved with the film, really bought into it. I think your performance and Warren Christie's performance are fantastic. You guys are essentially tasked with carrying the entire film. Because I mean, you could theoretically even say it's almost a stage play in some respects, because it's just two guys in a lunar module for a large portion of the film. So, I mean, you guys are tasked with carrying the film on your backs, and you guys do a fantastic job of doing so. So
you're very kind, thank you. Yeah, we just had tiny little moments to try and inject a bit of humour, a bit of friendship. All that stuff was there were little moments to try and make it work. But I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. Thank you. And the film doesn't end on a very happy note either, which kind of makes it a little, more upsetting that you are invested in these characters, and then the government, says, "Yeah, that didn't happen. They're just it just crashed. Don't worry about it." So
yeah. And you tend, again, in terms of the conspiracy, you tend to feel that's very, very possible, isn't it? There are plenty of things that you and I don't know about. Yeah. Probably because it's good for us not to know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, if there were monsters in moon rocks and they brought moon rocks back and then they went missing or were stolen, I would just, whatever, just let it be. I'm not going to worry about it. So.
Well, the interesting thing for me recently was that there was a whole debate in the science, with cosmologists and stuff about whether there's life outside our planet. And apparently there's been a policy for many, many years that we don't actually signal out into the universe. We listen, but there is a kind of policy not to send anything out in case what comes back at us is aggressive. In case we let people know that we're out here.
Right.
So that was quite fascinating. That's actually a policy, of not transmitting out into the universe in case of getting the wrong kind of attention back. That seems sci-fi to me, but that's actually the view that people take in governments.
Right. Which is terrifying. If you think about it, that we're actually worried about something that films have talked about for as long as people have been interested in what's up there in space. So it's kind of.
Well, yeah. People with what I conceive to be greater minds than mine. I would think, oh well, they're worried about that, are they? Okay, so that's a reason for me, therefore, to be worried.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes there's always that guy on the street corner saying the end is near, but when it's someone who's, a scientist or someone else who has a greater knowledge base than I do says something like that, I'm like, okay, great. So, yeah.
In fact, I'm just doing a series for NBC now, called You, Me, and the End of the World, but that's about a comet, coming at us that wasn't expected. It got bounced off course in its, 34 days left to live before the 16-mile wide comet meteor hits the Earth, and we're all extinct. So it's an extinction level event. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of scope, isn't there?
Yeah.
For that kind of filmmaking, storytelling. I think that's never going away, is it?
No. Those themes are always going to be common. I think throughout as long as film is being made, stories are being told. So
yeah.
That does lead me to my last question. Is there anything you're working on now you kind of wanted to talk about?
Well, literally, I just mentioned that. Yeah, so I think it's coming out. I'm not sure if it's the fall or in the spring next year, but it's NBC doing a series called You, Me, and the End of the World, in which I play the American president. So I'm gradually ticking off the iconic roles, astronaut, U.S. president, and it's got Rob Lowe, Megan Mullally, and Jenna Fisher. It's kind of a comedy drama about it starts with the survivors of the apocalypse, and it works backwards, 34 days backwards, to how those people managed to survive it, and to be the only sole human beings left on Earth. So it's a brilliant script, very funny, very dark. So I've been really enjoying doing that, actually. Yeah.
All right. So on to Pitch Black, came out in 2000, so 15 years ago now. Directed by David Twohy.
Twohy, I thought?
Twohy?
Yeah.
Features Vin Diesel, Rhoda Mitchell, Cole Hauser, and Keith David. Vin Diesel plays, I would say, the other character he's really known for. I mean, before Guardians of the Galaxy, which is like the role I'm assuming is going to be chiseled on his tombstone. He plays Riddick. And this is the first time you get to see Riddick, and he is a criminal who is being transported, and the spacecraft that he's being transported on crashed on this planet, and there are monsters that only come out at night or in the dark, and they have to survive. And that's kind of the basic elevator pitch of the film.
Yeah, so. But the reason that it's troubling is that the planet goes through like a 2-month day-night cycle.
Right.
And they crash like 12 hours before it goes dark.
Right. So, what do you think of this film, John?
I really like this movie, and I already know what you think about this movie, but I really, really like Pitch Black. I think of all the Riddick material, I think Pitch Black is the best one.
Right, because I forgot to mention that this is I did mention this is the first Riddick movie, and they would go on to make 2 more feature-length films and 1 animated film off of the Riddick character with, I'm assuming, no other characters from the first film.
Keith David is in the animated short and the second one, and Rhiana Griffith is in the animated short, but everybody else from this movie, other than Vin Diesel, is not in the other ones.
Gotcha.
But
so yeah,
I mean, I think this is a good horror movie. The monsters are freaky. I really like the characters. I mean, Riddick is Riddick at the character's finest. It's not, I'm Riddick, I'm saving the world. It's, I'm Riddick, and I'm sort of a murderous dickhead. You know? He's selfish, he's aggressive, he's aloof, and he's also a little bit weird. I mean, at one point he cuts off the captain's hair and sniffs it.
Bro,
and
you don't need reason. You don't need reason for that. Just say it.
And that's why I like this character, because Riddick is better than he is in Chronicles of Riddick, and he's better than he is in the new one, which I think is just called Riddick. And, you know, then you get all the other characters that I really like, and I know that you aren't particular fans of some of them, but I don't think there's any character in this movie that I disapprove of.
You know, for me, and this is just me, I mean, again, this is not a condemnation of the film as a whole, but for me, this film seems like it was a good idea. And there are some interesting things that the film does, but I think as a whole, the film just doesn't work for me. And the climax of the film is so lackluster, it's not even funny. I mean, the climax of the film is essentially some people hiding in a cave and Riddick has to go save them.
I would say that's more of the falling action, though. I would say the climax of the film is the trip from the ship to the cave.
Yeah,
and
but
then
still,
everything else
not,
after
but
that
still
is
that
falling
isn't
action.
Really, but still that really isn't that interesting. I mean, it. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's just being nitpicky, but you know, like we said, the film follows Vin Diesel, who plays Riddick, who is a prisoner. And you know, his backstory is that he's not really a bad guy.
Well,
kind of, but I mean, he's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Running Man. He's kind of a product of the situation,
right? Because
him being in prison has kind of made him nuts,
right? And he's also, you know, the whole reason why he's on the ship is because Cole Hauser, playing William J. Johns, is a bounty hunter literally dragging him back to what is called an Ultramax prison. So I think in that situation, I would also be a little grumpy.
Grumpy. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Grumpy. And you know, his character is not, I wouldn't say it's one-dimensional. It's like you said, it's a pretty interesting character, but a lot of the characters in the film are one-dimensional. And I think that in my mind also hurts the film.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty big cast for a sci-fi horror movie, because they have a lot of people that are kind of just there to die, and I think they do interesting things.
I would say half of the cast is just there to die.
Right, and I would say they do some, you know, who plays?
We get to see space Muslims for the first time in ever, which I think is strange.
On a pilgrimage to New Mecca.
Right.
Which is where the second movie takes place? Chronicles of Riddick, he's on New Mecca, right? Or did they just, like, stop on a random planet?
I have no idea.
I haven't watched that one in a while. Who plays the little, Louis Fitzgerald plays Paris P. Ogilvy. The merchant guy?
Mm-hmm.
And even though his character is absolutely just there to get eaten
by the monsters.
Right. I mean, I think I still like what they did with him. He's the sort of typical selfish merchant who's worried more about saving his bottles of booze and his old-timey spears than he is about helping them transport fuel cells. And it's a trope, but it's not badly done, and I don't think it takes away at all from the movie, and his death is pretty cool.
You know, so, I mean, he does get to deliver a pretty great line before he dies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say that the plot of the film is pretty, straightforward. Again, they crash land on this planet, and they're trying to escape the planet. That's, kind of long and the short of it.
Mm-hmm. And, Zeke, John Moore, is the first one to get monstered.
Yeah.
Because he gets dragged under a hole.
Yeah.
Because they're, digging to find water.
Yeah.
Because it's a desert planet.
Yeah. And it's
an ugly planet. It's a bug planet.
Oh, God. Yeah, I was waiting for the Roughnecks to come running over one of the hills.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
And just shoot all of them. And then Casper Van Dien just goes, "You apes want to live forever." Starship Troopers 3. That'd be awesome.
Oh, man.
Man, why wasn't that this movie? Just cast Vin Diesel as Riddick in Starship Troopers, and you'll probably get a great movie.
Dude, if they dropped Riddick into a Starship Troopers movie...
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
So they find out that there are these monsters on the planet that only come out in the dark. Not necessarily night, but the dark. That's why the film is called Pitch Black.
Right, because they run around underground, too.
Right. And coincidentally, Riddick in jail had a shine job, which means his eyes were screwed with to give him night vision.
I mean, technically, no. Technically, it's because he's not actually a human.
What?
In the later movie, in Chronicles of Riddick, you find out he's like a sort of offshoot of human evolution, that his entire race got wiped out by the necro-whatevers in the second one.
Necromongers?
Right, the necromongers. And he just tells people he had a shine job in prison.
Necromongers. Come on, bro. That's some weak shit.
Yeah, I'm not a super big fan of the Chronicles or of Riddick, but I really like Pitch Black.
Well, and, to be fair, I don't think I'm going to watch the other two films, but, I can imagine Riddick not being able to carry a movie on his own, because Vin Diesel's not exactly the best actor in the world. We can reference Furious 7 for that.
I mean, Chronicles is definitely more action-y. I mean, it doesn't have the whole, monster suspense thing. It's This is
like
alien
a straightforward
planet.
monster movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Chronicles is more of an action war movie.
Right. So let's talk about the monsters a little bit, since this is Monster Movie Month. What did you think of the creature design?
Oh man, they're so cool. They're like a weird mix of hammerhead sharks, grasshoppers, and I
would say piranhas.
Yeah, piranhas. And they sort of their life. They have a whole life cycle, and it doesn't explain it in the movie because they cut the scene out. But apparently the little glowy grubs towards the end are like the baby larvae of them.
Yeah.
And then the next stage is the swarms that end up eating Claudia Black. And then the next stage is the really big ones. And they come out at night, they eat whatever is alive on the planet, and then they just start eating each other to cut down on numbers and feed.
Yeah.
And then when the night is over, they go back underground and sort of hibernate, but not really. And they are super fast and terrifying.
And I think that the monster design is probably my favorite part of this movie, because they're interesting monsters. I mean, the CGI hasn't aged well.
No, but
obviously, because it's 15 years old, but I think that they don't show the monsters in full light ever, so that helps.
Right. I mean, the best you get really is
at the end, when they're lit up by the engines.
Right. And before that, the best you get is Vin Diesel's eye POV.
Yeah. Which, I get why they did it, but I felt like that eye POV was just kind of, again, product of the times.
Really? I liked it.
I think it's just a product of how old this movie is.
Yeah.
It looks okay.
I mean,
but I don't think it's great.
Whenever I watch a movie from, before my time, kind of.
Your time.
I mean, I didn't really start watching movies till 2008. And whenever I watch a movie that's more than 10 years old, I turn off the part of my brain that goes, "Wow, that's shit graphics."
Right.
Because I give it a pass on its CGI, because technology advances at such a pace. I mean, it's just an exponential growth in the quality of CGI.
Right, of course.
And at some point you have to go, yes, the monster graphics did suck, but I still really like this movie.
I gotcha. And I'm trying to get better about that. But at the same time, you know, when you've got two things in the movie, like the creatures and the Riddick POV, it's a one or the other I can reconcile. And I reconciled the monsters, but not the POV shots.
Well, the monsters every now and then also had the, like, practical effects of their heads, too.
Yeah.
And those were cool.
But primarily it was the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie came out before Spider-Man did. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the high bars set for the early 2000s CGI-wise was the first Spider-Man film.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So after they crash, Riddick escapes.
Yeah.
And so everybody else sort of bands together to watch out for Riddick because Cole Hauser explains to them that
Riddick's a bad guy.
Right, and, like, will murder you in your sleep rather than talk to you.
Right.
And so they go out looking for water and supplies and parts for their ship, and they find a sort of mining town.
Yeah.
And the mining town is abandoned with, like, toys and stuff still on the shelves. And they find a model of the solar system, and as they like move the planet around, they realize that it lines up for a solar eclipse that blocks out the sun.
Right, and that it happened 22 years earlier.
Right, because that's the last time the solar eclipse thing was moved.
Right, and that's why the civilization, the people who inhabited the civilization are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Zeke dies. One of the guys that's sort of just there to die gets killed and dragged into the tunnels. And Riddick comes back voluntarily, right?
Yeah.
He comes back voluntarily because he sort of has a sort of sense of predatory animals because he's so predatory himself, I think is the sort of explanation for it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes back, everybody thinks he killed Zeke, and he tells them to dig into the tunnels. And so the captain, Carolyn Fry, played by Radha Mitchell, she goes underground and gets attacked by the monster things. And so when she comes back up, she tells them, "Hey, there's monsters. We have to go get that ship that's in the town and retrofit it with our fuel cells, or we're going to die."
Right. We got to get out of here.
And then, you know, it becomes important later in the film, but there's a character named Jack, who's played by Rhiana Griffith, who I got to talk to, and she's I want to say she's supposed to be a 13-year-old girl who's shaved her head to pretend to be a boy.
Which they don't know that she's a boy.
Right. No, they don't know she's a girl.
Right.
She says she's a boy, and she, like, starts imitating Riddick and becoming friends with Riddick, sort of, kind of, and looking up to him.
I mean, she goes as far as to shave her head.
Right, and wear goggles that are broken.
Right.
Because then it looks like Vin Diesel's goggles.
Yeah.
And so they go back to the ship, and Carolyn Fry has a crew member with her when the ship crashes that dies, and he dies really painfully and slowly because they don't have any morphine in their med kits.
Right.
And you have, like, all the inner crew politicking stuff I really like, because Cole Hauser finds out that Carolyn Fry tried to eject the sleep pods from the ship.
Right, yeah, to drop weight so that they could land without blowing up.
Uh-huh. And then the crew member that didn't let her do that is the one that died. And she finds out that the reason they don't have any morphine is because Cole Hauser's character is a hype, as they call it in the movie, which is a morphine addict who injects morphine into his eyeballs.
Right, and he's also a merc, not a police officer, which is what is kind of believed going into the film.
Right, because he wears a sort of cop badge and uniform type thing.
Yeah.
And so they all think he's a cop, and then it's revealed that he's actually a bounty hunter. And so they all have this inner group tension bullshit going on as they take a solar-powered rover back to their main ship to get the fuel cells. And as they get to the main ship on the rover, but as they're loading the fuel cells up, darkness finally falls, the eclipse happens, and you finally get to see flocks of the monsters come shooting out of these weird termite pyres.
Yeah. And then the rest of the film really is just them trying to get from one ship to the other with the fuel cells.
Because they get, like, Molotov cocktails made from the booze of the merchant guy. They have lights that run on, like, cord lights that sort of run on a battery that they pull out of the ship. And they have a wagon that holds that battery and then wraps the cord lights all around them. And they've got some flashlights, too. And Riddick is like, I'll take the power cells and I'll lead. And you guys stay behind me. Keep light on my back, not in my eyes. And so he sort of uses his eyesight to lead them back towards the ship through the night.
And that's like the last 45 minutes of the film.
Yeah, the awesome run to the ship.
Awesome.
Where they find out that Jack is actually a chick named Jackie, and she's on her period, and so the animals can smell her blood.
Which, I think I texted you,
you were like,
and I was like,
she's on her period? What the fuck?
Really? I was like, that's... When he said that, he's like, she's bleeding, I was like, wait, oh, come on. Like, that to me just felt like insanely...
Did Vin Diesel could just, like, smell period blood?
I guess that's what this movie's positing.
Because he's not a human.
Sure.
He's like an alien, and you just don't know it yet.
Yeah. But retcon it in the later movies. So, at one point, Cole Hauser's character is like, hey, we need to kill one of these people and leave them as bait for the monsters.
No, he doesn't want to leave them as bait. He wants to kill Jack, tie her behind them, and drag her like 40 feet behind so that the monsters go to her dead body and not them.
Okay, so I misunderstood that then.
Yeah, he wants to drag them like a trolling line for trout.
Oh. So he's like, Riddick, okay, you and I will team up. You kill her, and we'll do this. And then Riddick's like, no.
I'm not going to kill a little kid because you're going to turn on me later anyway.
Yeah. So Riddick and Cole Hauser fight, and Riddick ends up pushing Cole Hauser into the dark during their fight, and Cole Hauser gets impaled by one of the monsters.
Yeah.
And dies. And then gets his head split in half by the monster's mouth. And then they're walking through a canyon, and they get separated because of the creatures flying above them are fighting with the little flying ones are fighting with the bigger sized ones.
Right. Because they start eating each other, and the canyon sort of funnels them all into one space, and so they're all tearing at each other above them and falling into the canyon around them.
Yeah. And they get separated, and Riddick makes it back to the ship.
After closing them into a little cave with the skull of a dead monster.
Yeah. And Rhoda Mitchell makes it to the ship after using these glowworms for light in these bottles. And she makes it to the ship, and she pleads with Riddick to go back and save everyone. And at first they fight, and then he has a turn of heart.
Right. He essentially convinces her to leave them, and she falls to her knees crying because she knows she's gonna do it. And then he just goes, just get on the ship. And she gets on the ship, and he just goes after them.
Yeah. And so Riddick saves them, but in turn gets attacked by the monsters. And Rhoda Mitchell has to go save him, and as she saves him, she gets killed.
Right. And then you get, Riddick trying to hold her up in the mud, and her just, slowly dying in his hands.
And then she gets ripped away by the monsters.
Uh-huh.
And then they take off in the ship, and that's the end of the film.
No, they turn the ship on, let the aliens crawl all around it, and then turn on the boosters to fry all the aliens, and then they take off, and that's the end of the film. And the only people that are left alive are Riddick, Abu, Imam, Al-Walid, played by Keith David. He's the sort of
space
dad
Muslim
of the space Muslims, and then Jack. And the three of them live to be in the animated short, and also be at least characters in Chronicles. Because in Riddick, they don't even get to be characters.
And that's the film. I mean, again, I just feel like there's no climax. It's just, to me, it's just kind of like it's plotting.
I mean, it takes forever to get there because they're building the environment and they're making it look like Vin Diesel versus Cole Hauser is going to be the thing, and then eventually you find out, oh no, that's not going to be the thing.
Right.
And then the climax to me is, I think it's all still rising action up until the Vin Diesel Cole Hauser fight. And I think that's the peak, and then everything else is falling action. And, you know, Carolyn Fry, Rhoda Mitchell's character getting killed at the end is the sort of ending resolution. I think it's just everything from them leaving the ship, and even everything from the light going out to them leaving the planet is all relatively the same level of action. And so it doesn't have like a peak that you can go, that's the climax.
Right.
It's sort of that whole ending 45 minutes is a sort of level death violence conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I just found the film plotting. I mean, and most of the characters, except for Riddick, in my opinion, just aren't exciting or interesting.
Really?
You know? Yeah, I mean, the film, in my mind, I mean, I'll look back on it and be like, it was ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the film was a little forgettable. Except for Riddick as a character. And obviously a lot of other people felt that way because Riddick is the only character that they really did anything with after this film.
Well, because he was supposed to. It was originally written that Riddick was going to die, and Rhoda Mitchell, Keith David, and Rhiana Griffith were going to get off the planet. But then everybody on the production really liked the character of Riddick as they made the movie, and so they switched Riddick and Carolyn Fry around and killed Carolyn Fry so that Riddick could be in sequels. But then the sequels ended up not being super awesome anyway.
Right.
What does Rotten Tomatoes say about Pitch Black?
The tomato says 57%. So rotten. Despite an interesting premise and a star-making turn from Vin Diesel, Pitch Black is too derivative and formulaic to fully recommend to sci-fi or action fans.
Really?
And I agree. It is just, I mean, it's just kind of like it picks and chooses from other notable franchises and just kind of mashes them up into one film.
I don't get that, but that's cool. That's your opinion, I guess.
I mean, it is. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's particularly exciting as a film.
I don't know. I really like all the character interactions. I think Rhoda Mitchell's sort of pilot that pretends to be the captain because she doesn't want everybody to know that she was totally willing to just drop them into space. I think that's a good character, and I mean, I think Cole Hauser's John's character makes the movie. I mean, Riddick is entertaining and good, but John's is the conflict driver.
Right.
And he's also the only one that, I mean, he's the conflict driver and he's sort of the primary emoter as well, while still being a badass.
I mean, I just found his character just kind of one-dimensional. I found all of them except for Riddick one-dimensional.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I really did. When I was watching the film, I was just kind of like, I wasn't invested in any of the characters, which is unfortunate because, I mean, it's not like the film didn't try, but I think for me, it just kind of fell flat.
I don't know.
And this is a movie that I should have liked, because this is the kind of movie that I do like. It's a sci-fi action film. I mean, it's in the vein of Aliens.
I mean, maybe the problem was I did really build it up for you when I suggested we watch it.
Well, I didn't take it that much.
Oh, you didn't listen to me then.
I mean, I listened to you, but at the same time, I didn't want to build it up so much that I was disappointed when it wasn't the best thing ever. So, you know.
Cole Hauser was in Too Fast, Too Furious.
Cole Hauser was also in The Cave.
No, I mean, he played with
Hauser
Vin Diesel
was
again.
The Cave.
I don't know what The Cave is.
Oh, God. It's such a bad movie. Imagine The Descent, but with, like, weird worm monsters that can infect human beings and turn them into monsters.
So The Descent plus Slither?
Kind of. And not good. And has Cole Hauser, who I'm not sure I've seen him in anything other than that and this. So.
Tears of the Sun.
Never seen that.
Tigerland?
Nope.
Hark's War. He's in a lot of war movies.
He's got that all-American look to him, John.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you're a fan of action sci-fi, you've probably seen this movie. And it is a monster movie, and I'm kind of surprised that this is the quote-unquote cult classic. Or, a cult film.
I doubt a lot of people have seen it, honestly. I mean, I never heard about it until...
but people know of the Riddick character.
Yeah, they know of the Riddick character because Chronicles of Riddick got marketed out of the ass. Pitch Black didn't get marketed at all.
That's true.
I mean, its total budget was $23 million.
Yeah.
Made back $53 million. Like, nobody knew Pitch Black was a thing. And almost everybody working on it was... I think Keith David might have been in stuff before.
Well, Keith David was. Keith David was in They Live and all kinds of stuff. Keith David was a veteran of the business. Everyone else was kind of, this really is like the, one of the first times that anyone's got a taste of Vin Diesel other than Fast and Furious.
Yeah. And even Claudia Black, this was before she was in Farscape or Stargate.
Right. And she gets owned in this movie by the monster.
Yeah, she does.
And Rhiana Griffith has done nothing else other than these films, really. So. Yeah,
I think when I talked to her, she's in Australia, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I did that interview. But yeah, I think she's in Australia, working on art instead of acting.
Good for her. Good.
Yeah, because she likes it better.
Well, that's good, right?
Yeah.
So we'll actually we'll play that interview since you brought it up, and then when we get back, we'll wrap this up and move on to the last film we watched.
How did you get involved with Pitch Black?
I was auditioning for different things at the time, and my agent said you should go for this audition, and yeah, I did. I think there was a couple of callbacks, and eventually met David Twohy, and yeah, I remember having a really good audition. I think the audition scene was, the part where Shazza gets killed,
mm-hmm.
And Jack screams out, "No!" That was the audition scene, and yeah, I remember it going very well, and just relating to the character. I was a tomboy myself, and yeah, so I kind of went from there. After that, we went up to Queensland for some further auditions, and we went to the studios, and yeah, and then eventually they said, "Will you shave your head?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, you've got the job."
And you were around 15 years old at the time.
Why Actually, I was 13.
13? Oh, younger than I thought. Why were you acting at that age? Like, usually it doesn't,
Yeah, well, my mom got me involved in drama and, a bit of modeling and stuff early on, just as I think it's something she thought was a good idea to sort of boost my confidence, and, yeah, that was why she got me into it. And then, I enjoyed it, so I continued to be like, "Yeah, Mum, let's do this." And yeah, I was doing some commercials and parades, like little modeling parades and fashion shoots and things like that. And it was just sort of a natural progression. Yeah, so that's what I was doing at the time.
Gotcha. Now, for the movie specifically, Jack, your character, doesn't really get a lot of background information.
Right.
Did you come up with any in your head to help you play the character, or?
Yeah, David and I, we talked about the character and what her history was, and yeah, I guess it had to be like that so that there was the big reveal, halfway through the movie. We couldn't sort of, develop that early on. But yeah, David and I talked about that, and she was sort of had a bit of a rough life prior to that, as she hinted at, being sort of messed with. And I think she was just, kind of escaping the life that she'd had. So, just using that kind of feeling about wanting to get away and wanting to protect herself and being tough. And, Dave, it was sort of had to hide those sort of feminine qualities. And we talked about that. And, yeah, so that was kind of my start point, I guess.
Cool. Most of the movie takes place in the desert, both at day and at night. What was it like to film in that sort of locale?
It was awesome. Chupacabra is such a bizarre place. It is kind of like being on another planet. It's somewhere that I hadn't been as an Australian. I, hadn't been to the middle of Australia. And yeah, so we actually shot a lot of the day stuff out there in the desert, but the night stuff, a lot of that was filmed in the studio. But there were some night shoots, which was it was really cool to be out there in the desert under in this wide open space under the stars. It was pretty exciting. The day shoots, the planet was meant to be very hot, so we were being sprayed with water bottles, so that it looked like we were perspiring, but actually it was freezing cold because we were shooting in winter. Yeah, so to actually shoot there, it was freezing, but it looked like it was hot. I think we all sort of pulled that off, hopefully.
Yeah, it definitely looks like you guys are sweating pretty hard. Now, the movie deals primarily with trying to escape from the monsters that live on the planet.
Yep.
And they're almost entirely made out of CG. There's a few scenes where, like, Riddick slices them, and that's practical effects. But how did you know where to, like, look and when you were interacting with them?
Well, they did have some puppets. We called them chooks. The Australian crew used to call them chooks. Chooks are chickens, if you don't know.
Gotcha.
And so, but they did have puppets, as you said, and sometimes they would just hold them up on sticks, and here they are. And other times it was just kind of a general, like, they're in this area, look over here, look up here, or that kind of thing.
All right. And sci-fi movies always have a pretty vastly different tone than movies set in, like, the present day or even in the past. Can you talk a little bit about how shooting for Pitch Black felt different, or even if it felt the same as other films you've worked on?
Well, it was very different to the movie that I had just done a few months prior, which was a movie set in 1945, Australian wartime, on a little farm homestead. You couldn't get two more different films, really. It was called 15 Amore. So by comparison to that, it was certainly a very different experience. But I was a kid. I just rolled with these things. I mean, it was just what it was, I was just sort of having fun with it. I wasn't really thinking too much about, how it was different to other things I'd experienced. I was just kind of, enjoying it for what it was. And looking, when you watch the film back, it's pretty amazing to see what you create out of that experience when you're on set and you're performing, and just to see how that looks back on, in the rushes and things like that was pretty amazing to see. Mm-hmm. And I think they, it did look very different to, obviously there was that filter, so it really did look quite different to, how it actually looked to me whilst performing.
Right. And you also voiced Jack in the animated Dark Fury that bridges Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah, that was cool.
What was it like to record the audio for that as opposed to actually being on a live-action film set?
Well, it is very different. I mean, I guess the thing that's most different is that you don't have... Well, I didn't. I was in a studio by myself, just taking direction from David, and you don't have the other actors to bounce off. But, and that was a couple of years later as well. But I still felt so connected to the character and just kind of slotted back into that role. So it was pretty easy, really. The way that David writes Jack and her lines is just really familiar. So it was, the things that, the lines that I had for that role were very much, lines that I could sort of relate to as being things that Jack would say. And so it was very familiar. And, although it wasn't as fun because you don't have those other people to kind of connect with and bounce off and those energies bouncing around. It was still a great experience.
And then you Dark Fury came out the same year as Chronicles of Riddick, but you didn't play Jack in Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for that, or...?
If there is a reason, I'm not exactly aware of what that reason was. You know, I was happy to do the role. Yeah, you know, a number of years had passed. So I was 13 when I did Pitch Black, and then I think I was, 17 by the time Chronicles was getting ready to happen. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I had a couple of really positive meetings about that, and for whatever reason, it went in another direction, and that's just how it rolled, and it was fine. Like, I was really happy with the experiences I had, and David always hinted as well that there's a possibility that Kyra was an imposter, so you never know. You never know.
And what was it like to work with Vin Diesel and David Twohy?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I had a blast. I mean, I was 13, it was just, I had time off school, got to shave my head, got to hang out with Vin Diesel, like, visiting these interesting places, yeah, killing aliens. It was amazing. Vin was, I sort of felt like, Vin and I had a really strong connection, personally, and as, and that sort of really, helped develop our characters, I think, as well. And I think that sort of really played out in the first two movies, in Pitch Black especially. That rapport, I think that was pretty special, and we did nurture that off screen, off set as well. Vin was someone that I really admired, and, we had a lot of fun.
And do you have any specific stories about your time working on Pitch Black that sort of pop into your head when you think about that part of your life?
There's just so many good times. I think it was a unique production. There were a lot of firsts for all of us, and I don't know if it's something about being isolated out in Cooper Pedy in the first part of the shoot. It just sort of, it was a very close-knit cast, and we'd hang out when we had time as well. I remember playing hacky sack and just kind of doing fun stuff on our days off, and going to the beach with Finn, and it was cool. I was also close with Faraz Durrani, who I'm still mates with now, and we used to have a great time as well. I just sort of think of those, fun social times offset as well that were cool. And then Keith David was just hilarious. He was so comic. I remember just, there was a scene we were shooting when we get sort of when Riddick puts us in that little nook in the cave wall, in the cliff wall, mm-hmm. and we discovered the glowworms, and Keith was in there. I remember filming that scene, and we were just laughing so much. It was one of those moments where we couldn't stop laughing, and all he had to do was just look at us sideways, and we burst out laughing. Yeah, so he was a lot of fun.
And what was, we've already talked about how a lot of it is shot out in the desert in the middle of Australia. What was the shooting schedule like to go out there and get those shots?
I mean, early mornings, and sometimes really like into the early morning. It was. There were long days, definitely, when we were in Cooper Pedy. Everyone was just kind of knuckling down and trying to make the most of the time that we had there. Yeah.
And your publicist mentioned that you found the goggles that you used in the film.
Well, it's interesting that you have contacted me at this time, because I've just recently sort of reconnected with Jack, the character, myself. I found the goggles at my parents' place, which I visited recently, and I was just like, these are so cool, I'm going to do something with them. Just brought back loads of memories and just, feelings about that character and who she was. And So yeah, I have those goggles, and I actually just started a couple of weeks ago this little Instagram site called it's at Jack Be Bad, because that is the full name as penned by David. Mm-hmm. So it's Jack Be Bad with a double D. And so it's kind of pitch black themed street art and photos, Jack styled photos of me now, or the current Jack. And yeah, it's kind of like my own fan fiction around Jack. So it's like, what's Jack been doing for the last 17 years? Well, she landed in Australia and she's been in hiding. And now she's doing street art, trying to get over these memories of this alien-infested planet where she almost died. Yeah. So check it out. You might like it. It's just a bit of fun. It's I'm sort of just doing it for personal kicks, but yeah.
I'll definitely look at that. Is there anything else you're working on right now that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'm also like I've sort of moved more into the art side of things. I was always into my art, but over the last sort of 10 years, sort of been developing that a lot more. So I have I've been doing a lot of exhibitions and illustration work, and I also have an Instagram around that work that I do. So that's jadeland.design on Instagram, and I also have a website, which is rhianajade.com. And yeah, I sort of take commissions, and I've just done this big wall mural in Bondi, which is a pretty cool design. And yeah, so I'm doing a lot of art at the moment, and I'm sort of interested in where art and healing meets as well. So I sort of incorporate art therapy into my work, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay, so John, watch it, skip it, and best performance.
I say definitely watch it. If you like Riddick as a character, you'll definitely like Pitch Black, because Pitch Black is like the showcase introduction to Riddick, where they sell him. I think if you like science fiction action and monsters, you'll also like Pitch Black. I definitely watch it. I know Chris doesn't like it, but I really like this movie, and I think you should check it out. Best performance, I've already sort of said it. Cole Hauser as William J. Johns is as the antagonist that even when they're surrounded by monsters that eat human flesh, he's thinking about how he's going to get Riddick back in bondage and sell him for money.
Right.
I mean, that character, he drives the plot of the movie right alongside the monsters. And I think he's sort of the key to why I like it so much.
Gotcha. I'm going to say watch it. Even though I didn't like it, I still think a lot of people out there will like it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Just because it didn't, I mean, I could make that about any movie that I've ever said skip it, but I think that this movie kind of treads the line. You could really either go either way with this one. And again, I just think that for some reason, just the plot or maybe the monsters. The monsters I liked. I think it was more just the performances. Vin Diesel, in my mind, he was the best performance in the film, and everybody else just kind of fell flat. So, if you want to see Riddick, great. Otherwise, I would say that this film is just, it's okay, but it's not anything really great. And it as a cult success, I think is just kind of strange. And obviously, best performance, Vin Diesel. So, because Vin Diesel, there you go. So let's move on to the last film we watched, Chupacabra versus the Alamo. It is from 2013. It is a Syfy original, so you know that going into it. Features Erik Estrada, Julie Benson, Vanesa Tomasino, and a lot of other people that I've never seen in anything else. And Erik Estrada plays Carlos Seguin, not Seguin. And he is a DEA agent that is trying to figure out why a bunch of drug cartel bodies are showing up mutilated without their blood. Mm-hmm. And they find out that it's chupacabras. And everyone believes it's chupacabras immediately.
Right. That's just, oh man. He's just like, there's chupacabras. They're using the tunnels to travel around Texas.
I feel like someone coming up to me and be like, we need to fight the Bigfoots. Like, that's not a real thing.
I think the most conflict he gets from anybody is them being like, we don't have enough men for that. We can't help you. Not like, we don't believe chupacabras are a thing.
Chupacabras are roaming underneath the streets of San Antonio.
I didn't even think about that when I was watching.
Or, you know, to be perfectly honest, the streets of Vancouver.
Yeah.
What did you think of this one, John?
You know, this movie isn't great. It's a sci-fi original, and it looks and feels and is a sci-fi original. It's one of those movies that...
But would you say it's a sci-fi original?
Yes. It's one of those movies that they're entertaining to watch if you're in the mood for it. If you're trying to find...
It doesn't take a whole lot of brain cells to watch either.
Right. If you're trying to find, you know, a critically acclaimed suspense thriller, don't watch Chupacabra versus the Alamo. But if you're hanging out with some friends and you got some takeout and you got some beers, it's perfectly acceptable. And at some points, it's really sort of fun if you look at it in that vein. I mean, there are shots of Erik Estrada, and I talked about this when I talked to Vanesa Tomasino. There are shots of Erik Estrada on a motorcycle with a green screen driving past him because they didn't have the sort of ability or desire to actually have him drive around with the camera following him.
Well, and to be fair, the green screen that they were using, he did, when I spoke to Erik Estrada, he said that he rode a motorcycle. But they didn't film this in San Antonio.
Right. So they had
Which is apparent by the fact that the Alamo is never actually shown. The characters are never shown non-digitally in front of the Alamo.
they built their own like wooden fort thing for it.
Which to me, being, you know, you and I are both Texans, I mean, and I've been to the Alamo countless times, seeing the fake Alamo, I was like, oh my god. It's like so obvious that it's a fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
I know that this is not what the inside of the Alamo looks like.
Right. And even the outside is like wooden palisades as opposed to like stone, the stone sort of like monastery walling that is the Alamo.
Right, because by the way, the Alamo is a church. Is it not?
Yes, it's a church inside a fort.
Yes.
The Alamo is like the last... This is like the last stand inside the fort.
Which, I don't think the creators of this movie knew that.
Well, I mean, I was sort of waiting for them to do a last stand in front of at least a mock-up of the church. But, you know, they end up doing a completely different thing, which we'll get to when we do the full breakdown of the plot.
Yeah. I don't know if we need to break down this movie in full. Let's just touch on the main points. I watched this movie earlier this afternoon, and I'm gonna reference another time I talked to, another thing I talked about with Thunder 11, who wrote Sharknado. I think that this film could have used more fun and less seriousness. If this movie had been more like Sharknado and less like all the other sci-fi films,
it would have stood out more.
Yeah, I mean, it's got Erik Estrada in it. Erik Estrada is good looking for he's in his 60s. He's a good looking guy. He can still run and gun and, be his character from Chips.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just think this movie takes itself way too seriously.
I sort of get that.
It really is way too serious for what it's talking about. The title. I mean, the title of Sharknado. Sharknado. It's about sharks in a fucking tornado. You don't expect a movie like that to be serious because it's about sharks in a fucking tornado. But the good part about that film is that Thunder 11 actually put time and effort into making characters you care about.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's nuts. But it's also endearing it's so nuts and kind of tongue-in-cheek a little bit that it's good. This movie is just way too serious. I mean, there's like this whole thing with, oh, my daughter is injured, my son hates me. Like, God, that's not why we're watching this movie. We're watching this movie to watch Erik Estrada shoot some fucking chupacabras in the face.
The family stuff is a little I'll admit that it is heavy-handed and sort of takes away from it, but at the same time, this movie totally walks the line. I mean, there's a guy
I don't think it walks the line enough.
Well, yeah, maybe not. I mean, at one point, there's a party out in a field, and a chupacabra, straight up pounces on a dude's dick and tears it off, and he comes running back to the party dickless.
I mean, at one point, Erik Estrada takes a shotgun, sticks it in a chupacabra's mouth, and delivers the line of the film. You know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Chupa this. Jesus Christ. If it had been more chupa this and less, you put your own son in jail? Yeah, to teach him a lesson.
And
scared straight.
When they get to the Alamo...
First off, Erik Estrada's character. First off, Carlos Seguin, you're a dick.
I left my son in jail so that he wouldn't make criminal contacts.
Yeah. Not the best choice.
I think once they get to the Alamo, though, this movie totally goes where you were wanting it to go.
Kind of. I mean, but then there's less then there's less one-liners and funny stuff. Then it's just then it's just characters getting picked off and killed by chupacabras.
Yeah, but then you got the guy who played Crockett, Chad Krawchuk. Krawchuk? I don't know how to say that last name. The guy who played Crockett, he's the best character in the movie by far for me. I mean, they show up at the Alamo with maybe 15, 20 minutes left of the movie, and that's when he's introduced as this, sort of scrawny white dude wearing a Davy Crockett hat, and they start calling him Crockett. And he's, leading them around the Alamo, and as he's, pointing at guns for them to use, he's like, oh, and this is from, some famous person who's at the Alamo. I'm totally blanking of anyone other than Davy Crockett, and I don't want to use him because Crockett...
William Barrett Travis?
Yeah, sure. He's, pointing out things...
Sure, that guy.
He's doing, a tour guide thing while he's showing them, here's a musket that you can use because we're out of actual guns. I'm sure they still work, and also take, a minute to load for a trained loader.
Right.
And he's, there's just... His character is doing all this absurd stuff, and they're, running around with guns in the Alamo, strapping C4 to the sides of buildings, because they're going to try and blow up the Alamo to kill all the chupacabras.
It should be called Chupacabras Blow Up the Alamo, not Chupacabras versus the Alamo. Not to mention, it's Chupacabra versus the Alamo, not Chupacabras.
Right.
Which, okay, so let's talk about that. So...
The chupacabras themselves?
Oh, well, yeah. So we've talked about the monsters in the other movies, and I talked about the monsters in Pitch Black not looking the best. Man, the chupacabras are something special.
Yeah, because it's 2013 Syfy original.
I know. They actually look better than the monsters in Pitch Black.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I think when they do the practical effect of the chupacabra when it's biting Vanesa Tomasino,
yeah,
the head that they just sort of bounce on their shoulder
together,
that's not super great. But the CGI is not terrible, but it is, it's sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first half of this film is just kind of like a cop drama. Because they're we need to figure out who the chupacabras are, what they want, and what's going on. And then there's this kind of, you were talking about, this scene with Erik Estrada's daughter at this party, and her boyfriend gets his dick bitten off by a chupacabra. And she gets attacked. And then the chupacabras start coming to the city, and they, manage to find Erik Estrada's house.
Yeah, they, They track the two girls that survived the party to Erik Estrada's house, specifically to kill Erik Estrada's daughter.
And in a scene reminiscent of the raptors from Jurassic Park, they somehow open the door to the house.
What does his daughter use to kill one of them?
Like one of those serrated turkey knives.
She just cuts off its head.
Yeah, and then the other one, she throws it into the microwave.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And it literally explodes inside the microwave.
Gremlin style. That's from Gremlins, right?
Yeah, it is from Gremlins.
Which I think was a nod to Gremlins, because later in the film, the Crockett character goes, "Now that's a knife," which is from fucking Crocodile Dundee.
Right, because he picks up David Bowie's knife.
Yeah, David Bowie.
Yeah.
Is that Ground Control to Major Tom's there?
Oh, shut up.
Ooh. And then the kind of whole climax of the film is Erik Estrada and his son, who's like a gangbanger. Vanesa Tomasino and Erik Estrada's partner, played by Julie Benson, they are in the Alamo fighting off the Chupacabras after getting ambushed.
But not really ambushed.
Yeah,
I mean, they
really.
know where the Chupacabras are, so they take a SWAT team and all of his son's gangbanger friends, and they go into this big warehouse, and they all get murdered in the warehouse, except for, like, 5 of them.
Because the Chupacabras knew they were coming. The Chupacabras had someone in the force.
An inside man.
Just like a Chupacabra and a police outfit walking around.
That would have been fucking hilarious.
That's not me, I promise.
Oh my god.
See, that's what this movie needed.
Was a Chupacabra in a police outfit?
Well, yeah, but I feel like this movie is like right on the cusp of being Sharknado worthy.
Uh-huh.
And you would think that Syfy, after seeing the success of Sharknado, would be like, this is easy to emulate to some respects. We just need to find, someone who's willing to write a movie that doesn't take itself seriously.
What was the budget of Sharknado?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head. The budget for this film was probably, what, $2 million?
Yeah.
The budget for Sharknado was $1 million?
Oh. So they managed to make a more sort of
Thunder 11 and I talked about that, and the budget was $1 million.
Huh.
And the climax of the movie could have really been this over-the-top crazy shit with, Erik Estrada standing there with like a machete fighting off Chupacabras. And it kind of gets there, you're right. But I think that the movie lacks this level of fun that Sharknado has. And again, it's just surprising that Syfy didn't just emulate Sharknado to an extent.
Well, and they may have tried to. I mean, the rate at which the Syfy Channel pumps out movies is
astounding.
They can't all be Sharknado.
No, but I mean, it's just what I'm saying is like, it just needs that. I don't know. It needs someone who gets it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of get it.
To write a movie like Sharknado, you have to get it.
Right. You have to intentionally be making fun of yourself.
Well, I mean, yes and no. But you have to restrain yourself so that it's just not like laugh fest with Sharknado, with sharks. I mean, you have to take it somewhat seriously if you want to tell an interesting story. What did you think of Erik Estrada?
I mean, I haven't really...
And Vanesa Tomasino. I guess, what did you think of the cast?
I think I like the cast. I mean, I haven't really seen many of them in anything. I don't even think I've seen Erik Estrada in much, except for maybe To Survive, and I'm sure something else. Sea Lab. That's what I know him best from. Sea Lab 2021.
Right.
He's good. None of them are particularly bad. At no point was I like, wow, this acting is shit. But when you're working with Syfy original level material, it's sort of tough to
get a nuanced performance.
Right. I mean, when you're getting weird dog puppets thrown at you and you're running through a fake Alamo, it's sort of hard to really display a character. And when the writing is designed to do that, you also don't get a lot of stuff built in for it.
Right.
I mean, Erik Estrada had the most stuff written into the film, and that's because he's Erik Estrada.
Yeah, because he's the main character of the film.
Right. I mean, even his partner, I clicked away from it for a second to look at a picture.
Tracy Taylor.
Right. Even Tracy Taylor, she gets a sort of, I'm a new partner getting a new detective that doesn't want me.
Right. Which is like a trope that we've seen.
Right, and that's literally all they give her, because there's not really an intention to provide that to your actors when you're writing a movie like Chupacabra vs. the Alamo.
Right. It's all about, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about this as a whole, but these sci-fi movies, they exist to be, they get you with the title.
Oh, yeah.
And they hook you with the title, and then, they expect you to sit through it to see where that goes.
Or like one actor. They'll put like one actor or a weird title, and you'll be like, oh shit, that sounds crazy.
Right. Like Chupacabra versus the Alamo. Like, that's insane. Just that title alone. Or Sharknado. Or Pateracuda versus Sharktopus. It's a thing. It's a real movie.
What? I thought you were just coming up with a weird amalgamation of it.
No, if I were to come up with an amalgamation of animals, it'd be like Crococonda versus Robo-Lizard or something. It would just be something Robo-Gila Monster. Rhinoconda versus Crocolion?
Yeah, Rhinoconda versus Crocolion.
I'd watch the shit out of that movie.
Oh,
it's like a giant rhinoceros
It's a
an
snake
anaconda
with a
with
rhinoceros horn.
Yeah. And then Crocolion is just like a lion with like a mane. Or like a crocodile with like a mane.
A lion with a super elongated snout.
I'd watch that movie. It has to feature F. Murray Abraham and Coolio. Otherwise, I don't want to watch it. Coolio from Pterodactyl playing a army sergeant. It's a thing.
I know that one's a thing.
I just feel like this movie, it's just right on the cusp of being funny. And just being like one of those movies where I'm like, oh, Chupacabra is the Alamo. It's like Sharknado. You need to check it out. And instead it's like, there's some scenes of brilliance, but I think that the writers of the film didn't fully buy into the idea.
And that might be, I don't know how...
I don't think it's anyone involved with the movie, the actors. I think that they did the best they could with what they were given. I really think it's whoever wrote the film was just like, it's a fucking dumb-sounding title. Let's just kind of build this, generico plot around it. And then when we finally get to the Alamo, we'll actually give a shit.
And that might be, I don't know, I've never been hired by Syfy to be a writer for their things.
But we're looking. Please call us.
I will totally write for Syfy original.
You and I could totally write an awesome Syfy original.
Right. And I don't know, I think maybe...
Jersey Devil versus Croca Bigfoot.
I just think that when you're maybe writers that get hired by Syfy, they're like, oh, I wanted to write the next great American classic, and I'm writing Piranhaconda 3D.
So what?
I mean... That's
my thinking, right?
Right, but we're also outside. We're looking at this and we're thinking, how can we make it good? When you're a aspiring author, and the best job you can get is pumping out what you see as made-for-TV bullshit, you're not gonna put the effort that needs to go into it to make a movie about chupacabras attacking the Alamo entertaining.
Right, and this is something, again, I spoke with Thunder Levin about. When he wrote Sharknado, Syfy came to him through the Asylum, and they were like, hey, we want you to write a treatment for this idea we had called Sharknado. So I don't know if that's what happened with this or not. Maybe. But I can understand being frustrated with being given the task of making a movie called, Chupacabra vs. the Alamo. If it had been me sitting down to write this, I would have just written it in the time when the Alamo was the Alamo that everyone thinks about.
Right, and it would have been old school Davy Crockett Texans fighting against
Jim Bowie and William Barrett Travis versus Chupacabras.
The Chupacabras intercept the Spanish army, kill all the Spanish soldiers, and then attack the Alamo.
That's what I would have thought would have been awesome. And you could still have Erik Estrada. And you could still have all the people that were in this movie. You just have them as,
Erik Estrada could play Santa Anna.
Well,
and he could survive the Chupacabra attack to come to the Alamo and team up with the Alamo soldiers.
That'd be awesome. You've sold me on this movie. Now you have to write it. Chupacabras versus the Alamo 2, The Secret History.
The Secret History.
It's like Apollo 18 for the Alamo. Just think about it. Think about it for a second. Okay. It's happening. So speaking of Erik Estrada, we got to talk with Erik Estrada about Chupacabra vs. the Alamo a little bit. So we'll play that when we come back. We'll talk about the rest of the film. So how did you get involved with Chupacabra vs. the Alamo?
Well, Syfy Channel contacted my people and see if I wanted to read the script and see if I'd be interested in taking the role. Then I read it and I said, God, I've never done a thing like this before where I had to act and pretend there's these animals all over me and, you know, and chopping them up and shooting them and all this and all that. So I like the idea of it. I like the fee, and I like the fact that it was up to Vancouver for 21 days and knock it out. It took them 6 months to put all that graphic stuff in there,
right,
and everything else. The one thing that was real was the explosion. All the explosions were real, so I had to really run, you know. But it was good.
And you mentioned Vancouver now a couple times. Does the location where the movie is filmed, does that kind of affect how you pick projects?
Well, kind of. I don't want to go work in the desert for 6 weeks. I don't want to work in the jungle. I don't want to go live in a jungle.
Just for a day.
I don't want to go live in the jungle. I want to be able to knock out the job and then go back to a nice hotel room.
Right, of course.
And your days off, you don't want to be stuck in the jungle. You know,
Gotcha.
I mean, at my age and my time, because I'm not chasing the rainbow anymore. I'm just showing up for work here and there, and especially if I like it, you know. But nowadays, when you get to be 16, I'm 66 now, and you know, and I got SAG and after pensions, and I got Social Security and Medicare. How do you like that?
Right.
So I'm okay now. I mean,
gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess kind of, you know, a little off topic. Since you have been in the industry for a fair amount of time, and do you find yourself kind of being more picky with what you're doing, or are you kind of open to more kind of off-the-wall things like Chupacabra versus the Alamo?
Well, I'd love to do off-the-wall things now because for so many years I was always recognized as the straight do-gooder, you know?
Right.
It'd be nice to play a spicy, off-character, psycho role, murderer, or just a real twisted person, and to do sci-fi. I like to do more sci-fi. I kind of like the whole concept of doing sci-fi. It's more like playtime.
Right, as opposed to serious.
They should call sci-fi playtime.
Gotcha. So you play Carlos Seguin in the movie, and he's a DEA agent. Did you kind of do any prep work for that role, or?
No, I didn't have to. I didn't really have to. I played a cop for 6 years on shifts. I'm a real deputy sheriff.
Right.
And now I'm a real deputy sheriff, so I already had all this under my belt as far as authority and that attitude of law enforcing and all that. And I've been married, and I've been a dad. I've raised 3 kids, so I had all the background. The only thing I didn't have was the experience of working, pretending there's a monster dog going to chew me up there, you know?
Right.
But that's where the acting comes in.
Right. Were there any scenes in the film that were particularly difficult to film?
Well, we had one major explosion, and it, you know, it's only going to be done one time, and so we had to run out of this big fortress, and as we're running, the thing blows up, you know. So you had to make sure you didn't trip or fall, and make sure you knew where you were going, and make sure you blew the hell out of there. That was the only particular thing that you know I really got my attention and made sure everything was copacetic, so everybody be safe, I'd be safe, and all that. And then there were a lot of motorcycle riding. I did my own motorcycle stuff. You know, I didn't do the jump. They got a stunt guy for that. And God, you know, and he did it one time, and it was great.
I was going to say, I'm sure the motorcycle stuff came relatively easy.
Yeah, that too.
Right.
Having the experience of chips.
Right. If they're going to have Erik Estrada in their movie, they need to make sure he's on a motorcycle at some point.
At some point. On a bike or a skateboard or something. Something with wheels.
Right.
Something with wheels.
Right. I can only imagine. So you mentioned that you would like to do more sci-fi.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. Then I can go to all those sci-fi memorabilia shows and stuff, They're so much fun. Yeah. All those Comic-Cons, Mega-Fests, all those things. They're a blast. Matter of fact, I'm going to one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 2 days for a Wizard show.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun.
So, has being in a film like Chupacabra versus the Alamo, which was on the Syfy channel, has that kind of put more eyes on you as someone who would be in these kinds of films?
I hope so. I hope it does. Come on. Nowadays, when you get up to my age, I don't know how old you are, but when you get up to my age, you don't want to be stressed. You just want to show up, do your thing, get your check, go home, and enjoy your house. If you live in a house, and I live in a house that I bought in '79, and I'm on top of this mountain in the Hollywood Hills, and I see the world, at my feet, and I love it up here. To get me off the hill, now that I'm collecting all these pensions and all this other stuff, it takes something of interest.
Right. I got you.
But I like I do casinos. I do like 20 shows a year at various casinos. I host the world's greatest game shows, and I give away hundreds of thousands of dollars in prizes, and we play about 9 games. The not so newlywed game, the greatest lover game, the high-low card game, and we give away cars and we give away money, and everybody wins. Everybody does win at my shows. And that's a fun thing to do because I get on a plane on a Friday, knock out 2 shows on a Saturday in a casino, do meet and greets and photo ops, and then I'm home on Sunday. And I get out there and I meet hundreds of fans, even though they're casino patrons from the casino, but they're still fans nonetheless. And it's just a lot of fun because I like my fans. I like getting out amongst them.
Right. And I'm assuming a large majority of your fan base is fans of yours from Chips.
And my Latin soap opera. I had the #1 Latin soap opera in the world, the longest running, highest rated one, 17 years ago.
Right.
So I get a lot of, and the show was dubbed in 87 languages all over the world, so I get all kinds of nationalities at my show, all walks of life. It's kind of cool. Yes. And now, since the show's in syndication every day, Chips is, it has been since September. It airs on the Me Network, Me TV network, all over the country every day. I'm getting all kinds of new fans and kids and the whole thing.
All right. So, let's wrap this up a little bit. So, Rotten Tomato, the tomato says nothing. There is nothing on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it does. When a movie doesn't get a release in theaters,
right,
Rotten Tomatoes doesn't really.
Yeah, Rotten Tomato is just like, fuck you. It's not a big budget film.
Right.
But looking at the IMDb, it's got 3.1 on IMDb. 83% want to see it on Rotten Tomatoes, but no real reviews. I guess Uncle Barky, even grading on a curve, Chupacabra versus the Alamo fails to rise to the level of enjoyable stupidity. Better luck next time.
Yeah, this one on IMDb says, on the whole, there's definitely worse to be seen, but even when you know what to expect, this was an example of good potential wasted by mediocre execution. So a lot of people seem to think the same as you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential in a movie about chupacabras attacking the Alamo, but that this movie didn't live up to all the possibilities that it had.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's the best way of putting it. It's just it has a lot of potential and it just doesn't really make good on that potential. So let's play that interview with Vanesa Tomasino and then we'll wrap this up.
So how did you get involved with Chupacabra versus the Alamo?
They started looking for actors in Vancouver because that was going to be the location selected for the shoot. I got called in because I was one of the Latina actresses in the city, and I knew the casting directors, and they kind of had an idea that I could fulfill this role in a great fun way, and so they called me in. and you know the drill, right? We get to audition, and then you go through various stages. So you do your audition, and then you have to be approved by producers, directors, and so on. So that went on for a while. I think that from the point that I auditioned, I had to wait around a month to hear back from them. And then you get the call saying you're going to do this role and get ready.
So then what did you do to prepare for the role of Agent Danny once you got it?
I personally did so many things because it was a role that was definitely out of whatever I had done in the past. I was used to doing a lot of drama and comedy, and I had never done an action movie before. And for Agent Danny, she had to be running around, carrying 2 guns. And I had to learn how to shoot a gun. And also, part of it is also having a good cardio, because every time that you shoot a scene, you get to do it over and over again. So if you see the movie, there's a lot of running involved, especially for Julia and myself. And you are doing 5-6 takes of the same scene with the 2 guns on your hands, and then you got to keep on running. And you got to look like you're not really that tired.
Right.
So we did a lot to prepare, learning how to shoot guns, getting some extra cardio, and all that jazz. But it was definitely a lot of fun.
Would you say you enjoyed it more than your drama and comedy roles?
I did. And I think that especially Syfy has a very unique campy kind of a format for their movies, right? And so it's so different from anything that you do on other networks, because everything has to be very, not just polished, but it's not so freeing. It's very limited. And Syfy is so great at allowing actors to just have fun with it. And so I definitely had a lot of fun doing Chupacabras and having that opportunity to just be absolutely crazy.
How did you guys film the scene where your character gets bit by the Chupacabra?
Yeah. Okay, so it was, I don't know, but I think it was around 2 in the morning when we shot that scene. And if you can notice, I have a lot of blood and I would call it gooiness around my neck, and that was really cold. But yeah, so we shot it first. We do the regular wide shot running through, and then you have to do your own stunts, because it's fun when it's not so dangerous. If it's a complicated stunt, then they would call in a stunt person. But for this, it was just me falling and getting bitten at first by an imaginary chupacabra. So I thought I could pull it off. So I did my own stunt, running and then falling. We did that a few times, and a lot of the crew, including Terry, the director, got really scared at some point, because he thought that every time I was falling, I was hurting myself, which I wasn't. It's just that I had to look like I was hurting. And so you do it without the actual chupacabra. You just do it on your own, which looks really silly at first. And then they add in with the computers in editing and post editing. Then they add the chupacabra. But then also for the close-ups of my biting, they do have a puppet. So they have a chupacabra puppet, and they put the puppet really close to your neck to get those very tight shots. And then obviously the makeup effects people are just wonderful, and they put all the blood and all that magic right in there.
And when you were in scenes where you guys were all fighting the chupacabras, did they do anything specific to say, this is where the chupacabras are, look here?
Yes. Especially when you have, those scenes where we are shooting at them from the top of the Alamo, and we're supposed to be surrounded by them. And you don't see them, right, when you're shooting them, because we don't have them in there. So they just say, this is your eye line. Make sure you look over here, pretend they're 1,000, and go. And like I say, because of the format that is the sci-fi campy format, then you're able to play around with it. And sometimes even looking silly works really well. So even if sometimes you're not looking at the same place, that also works well. But that just happens to be a sci-fi movie, right?
And you mentioned it was shot in Vancouver,
yes.
Right? So how did they what was it like to be in a replica of the Alamo in Vancouver?
It was really cool. It was really cool because there were, once again, it's the format. It was really silly with us recreating the Alamo when the Alamo doesn't actually look like that in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people had a good laugh about that, and just saying, we're recreating an Alamo that actually no longer exists. And so, yeah, it was fun. I mean, you see the set, and the crew works so hard on making it look so good for us and for the viewers. And yeah, we enjoyed that part of the show. And luckily for us, we shot at a location that is already a fort. It's outside Vancouver. And so they already had a lot of the structures themselves. So they just had to dress up the set more. But overall, it was a really nice fort. And it was really fun because it was close too. So when we were doing those late night scenes, it's almost like a chateau fort, that you have all the walls surrounding it. And so it was really cool. You felt like you were being transported to a different time.
Do you have any particularly memorable stories or experiences from the set?
Well, obviously, working with the entire cast was phenomenal. I mean, you rarely get the chance to do scenes where you have a group of 5 people with you all the time running around. And I think that for me, the best part of the movie was working with all these guys at the same time. And so every day was a circus. It was a circus. There was music. People were laughing because we were all together, and each one of us brought a different element to the dynamic of the group. So, for example, Erik and myself being, Jorge too, Jorgito Vargas, he's also Hispanic. But Erik and myself, we love to dance. And so in between shots, Erik would just start playing his music. We would play some salsa, some merengue, or anything like that, and we would just start dancing, and then they would say, okay, action. And then we'd be running around with guns, and the fun that we had on set and the dynamics and how we all got along was really fun and very helpful when you're doing a movie that, with late hours, with a lot of action. And I think that was the best part of it. And of course, who doesn't like to run around? I mean, the last thing you want to do is throw your lines at a camera and then be still. And when you get the chance to be running around with a lot of people, it's just fabulous.
And what about working with Terry Ingram? How's that?
Terry's great. I think Terry, he's very down to earth, but he's very respectful of the actors, and he's extremely supportive. So even when you are doing a scene and you do it a couple of times, he will say, do whatever you feel like doing. Try it this way, try it that way, go with your instinct. And so he's very respectful of each person's capabilities and also uniqueness. And so Terry was great at just letting us be. And then if something didn't work, he would come up and say, hey, I don't think this is working. Let's try it this way. But yeah, no, working with Terry is always fun. He's a great director.
So what was your opinion of the finished project?
First of all, I did not know what to expect. Once again, Syfy always throws curveballs at people. And, when we read the script the first time, you cannot picture it. It's not until after that it all comes together. So there were scenes that we just sometimes couldn't read well. Like we felt like something was missing. But then with the final product, we realized that was part of the film, that it was supposed to look like that, or it was supposed to be that dramatic or silly or whatever it was, right? So with the final product, I had a good laugh. I really did. I loved everything. Like, even the CGI, the chupacabras were just really funny. They're this, this dog-like, and they move really weird, and also the backdrops, when Erik is riding his motorcycle and you can see the backdrop going, it just takes you back. You feel like you're watching a movie from like the 70s and the 80s, but it's modern, right? It's with, it's new. And so I personally thought it was hilarious, and I thought that Syfy did it again. Another great campy movie. But definitely, I did not expect it. I actually didn't have any expectations, to be quite honest.
So then, would you work on more Syfy projects if they ask?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In a heartbeat. It's absolutely fun, and the cast and the crew are always great. So yeah, if there was another movie, we were actually joking on set, saying maybe we should turn this into a Syfy series. chupacabras attack forever.
Just all the different landmarks.
Exactly. They start appearing everywhere, and suddenly we have the European chupacabra, you know. And you know, we thought that would be great. And if that ever came up to become a reality, we would love to be part of it. That's how much we really enjoyed the process.
And are you working on anything now that you'd like to talk about?
Right now, I'm actually on hiatus. I did a movie last year with Hallmark Channel, Christmas movie. And right now, I'm on hiatus because I'm doing my PhD.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm doing a PhD in political science. So I've taken this year. I'm almost done, actually, coming this summer. I'm almost done, so then I can go back into acting, and I'm really looking forward to that as well.
All right. So, John, skip it, watch it, and best performance.
You know, I'm going to say skip it overall. You know, I don't know if it took me forever to find a copy of it. If it were on Netflix, I'd be like, yeah, totally, you know, hang out, bring over the bros, grab a pizza, get like a 24-pack of beer.
Bring over the frat daddies, bro.
Right. And just, like, drink and enjoy the movie for what it is. But, like, sober, you know, there are other movies in the genre that do a sort of better job at, they sort of bring more fun to it.
Like Sharknado.
And again, I haven't seen that, so I can't say for sure whether I agree with you or not, but sure.
I mean, from what you've heard about Sharknado, it embraces the stupidity.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've also watched Dino Croc vs. Super Gator and Two-Headed Shark Attack. I mean, these movies have value as things to do when you don't really know what else to do and you're sort of drinking and you don't feel like going out to a bar or anything like that because that's too much work or too boring
or too expensive.
And you're looking for something to do. And so this movie has value, definitely, but I don't know if I would suggest people watch it.
Right.
And I think best performance, I'm going to go with Chad Krochik. You know, and like I said earlier, none of the characters in this movie really get a sort of writing attention that they need to be full characters that I go, oh yeah, that performance is the one, you know?
Right.
But I think if I have to pick one, it's going to be Crockett, just because his entrance into the film sort of signifies its final sort of adopting of what the movie should have been the whole time. I mean, he's a weird little guy. He knows a bunch of stuff about the Alamo. He starts telling them where they should hold out, and then at the end, the Alamo just blows up. They blow up the Alamo with C4, which we didn't even mention. The final ending is literally a green screen shot of the Alamo exploding.
Yeah. But yeah. By the way, the Alamo gets blown up. Oops.
And they all just sort of sit there and stare at it blow up.
That's actually my second favorite line in the film. Erik Estrada goes, "We're going to blow up the Alamo." I was like, wow. Yeah, I mean, I want to say skip it. There are better types of these movies. Unfortunately, I think all these sci-fi movies are rather hard to track down. Unless they're ones like Sharknado, which have, you know, become a thing.
Right.
But, you know, I think that this movie has some interesting stuff. I just wish that it had fully embraced the insanity of the concept of chupacabras at the Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be another great one. Chupacabras Visit the Alamo, where it's a family of chupacabras just on vacation, visiting the Alamo.
And all of a sudden, everybody starts freaking out, and they don't know why.
No. It'd just be chupacabras just like visiting the Alamo in like tourist clothes and, you know, just having a great time in the city of San Antonio. Chupacabras Visit the Alamo. Chupacabras on vacation.
Not really feeling that one.
I'd watch that one. And it's like a family drama in the vein of My Little Sunshine.
Yeah, not really feeling it.
Well, someone would be, John. Best performance, I'm going to go with Erik Estrada. Because, I mean, it's Erik Estrada. And he gets to look super badass riding in front of a green screen on a motorcycle in front of the Alamo. And then he gets to, like, fake look at the Alamo, which was one of my favorite scenes in the film. So, John, is there anything you want to plug before we wrap this up?
Well, you got Chronicles from the Crypt, which is a cool podcast that we do about Tales from the Crypt episodes. And the next Kulturecast is going to be the Jurassic Park franchise. Once we watch the franchise, the Jurassic World. And my Twitter is John Lein, spelled Lein, followed by the number 1.
And you can follow me on Twitter at HeelStash, like the Culture Shock page on Twitter, or on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. And like John said, Jurassic Park franchise, that podcast should be coming out relatively soon. So, great.
Nailed upon the corridor of time. Insane teacher, be there in mind.